Is this too much? Look, okay, is it? Oh well. Hey! Hey, sweaties! Hey, sweaties! I don't know how to act now. Well, thank you so much to everybody that watched my video. I don't know what to say. I'm kind of, I got stage fright now. If this is your first time seeing me, stop looking at me. Wait a minute. I don't always look like this. You're gonna be a little lost. Maybe. You should probably go check out the other video that I made just before this one. This is going to be part 2, seasons 4, 5, and 6 of American Horror Story. I'm breaking down the timeline of American Horror Story. That's what this whole thing is about, okay? I'm just picking up from the last video, so trigger warning, I'm done explaining everything, okay? I did purchase another board. While I was filling it out, I was already like, oh, this is not gonna work. But for the time being, this is the timeline. This is what we've talked about so far. Red is season 1, purple is season 2, and then green is season 3. We'll be referring to this as we go on. We are about to get into season 4 of American Horror Story Freak Show. I don't know if you can tell. I love this season so much. This is my 5 out of 5 season. Yes, you're just joining us in this video. I am giving rankings on every season, what I thought about it, out of 5. I fucking loved every second of this season. And we're gonna break it down. So buckle up, get a snack, hunker down. There's like a little gnat flying around. If you see me square up, that's what I'm doing. Enough chit chat. Let's get started. Everybody accounted for? Did you get your snack already? 3, 2, 1, go. All right, our story's gonna take place predominantly in 1952 in Jupiter, Florida. For all you non-Americans out there, yes, there's a place called Jupiter. There is a milkman going around, and he goes up to a house owned by the Tattlers. He's knocking at the door. No one's answering. He goes inside, and he sees everything is toe up from the flow up. He sees Mrs. Tattler laying on the floor, stabbed to death. She's died. And then he goes upstairs, and he sees her daughters, we'll call them the twins, Bet and Dot Tattler. This is Mrs. Sarah Paulson. Oh, I should specify. Take a good look. This one is Dot. Right, that one. Dot. This one on the side is Bet. Milkman goes inside. He sees them, and they're wounded too. So he's thinking, oh my God, you've been mugged. Wheel them into the hospital. Actually, the doctors, they show an x-ray. 2 hearts, 1 reproductive system, spine, it splits off in the center. While they're there, they get visited by one of, if not probably the most important character of the season. Like, she's like top 3. She has to be, because it's Jessica Lange. I have to say it like in the show. Elsa Mars. Elsa Mars, okay? No relation to Bruno Mars. Well, Elsa is going to the hospital to meet with these twins, and she would like to recruit them to what? Her freak show. That's right, ladies and germs. Elsa has her own freak show. Fräulein Elsa's Cabinet of Curiosities. She hears about the twins. She goes to the hospital to chat, and while she's there, she meets someone named Penny. I have her picture, but I printed off one of her later on in the season, and I don't want to give it away just yet. She gives her card. She says, you come by too. You come by and see the show. Okay, I just have to say that. It'd be weird if I talked about it later on. Didn't mention it. Dot, she is depressed. Dot is not happy. She just hates life. She wants to be her own person. Bet, on the other hand, she's just fascinated with anything and everything. Really got a fascination with movies. So anyway, they just have 2 different personalities. If you can't tell by her facial expression in this photo, I'm gonna bombard you with a lot of characters right off the bat. They go to the freak show and they meet Jimmy Darling. Evan Peters is back at it again. And if you look at his hands, he is also known as Lobster Boy. They meet Jimmy. He's really sweet on them. He's really welcoming and friendly. And we have Amazon Eve, the strong lady, the strong woman. Ethel Darling. This is Jimmy's mother. She is also the bearded lady. Elsa, she's the one that's recruited everybody into her island of misfit toys. She is in charge, right? She's head honcho. But really, Ethel is the one that kind of like looks after everybody. Elsa, she really can't be bothered. She's like, I am a star. I am the headliner. Don't bring any of your problems to me. Oh, I should have mentioned also, she would love to be famous. That's her biggest ambition in life. She says it at the end of the season. I'm not giving much away, but she's talking to somebody and she says, I just want to be loved. So anyway, she thinks if she gets famous, she'll be loved. But anyway, Ethel, she is second in command. Ma Petite, the smallest woman in the world. Ma Petite is pretty much like everybody's little child on the troop, but mostly Elsa. At night, she'll bring her into her bed and she'll snuggle up to her. Am I explaining this well? Okay, and now we have legless Susie. She does not have any legs. Yeah, this is like Bet and Dot meeting everybody for the first time. Writing in their diaries. You get a lot of narration from Bet and Dot from their diary point of view, and both of them have different perspectives of meeting everybody in the troop. Didn't mean to print off this big of a picture of this character. I think he has like 2 lines in the whole show. His name is, I think it's Toulouse. He's a little person. French. I don't know. I felt bad if I left him out. You know, he doesn't do much. I mean, whatever, you get it. Also have Paul, aka Seal Boy. His arms are not fully grown. I couldn't find a good enough picture. This is Meep the geek. Rips the heads off of chickens or any live animal really that's small enough for him. And that's his thing. And that is about it. That rounds up our troop. Or does it? There's a character by the name of Salty, what they call a pinhead, and he's married to Pepper. Do you remember Pepper? From Asylum? So this is when, you know, if you're watching from the very beginning, you'll see Pepper and you're like, what the fuck? What are you doing here? All of these seasons, like, they all live in the same universe. So yes, we have already met Pepper once. So that about sums up our troop for now. But we're going to talk about some other characters that you're not ready for this. So there is a string of murders that are happening. Young couple, they're having a picnic. The boyfriend says, I got something in my car. I want to go get it for you. Well, while the boyfriend's at the car, there's a character that shows up, and he's one of my favorites if you couldn't tell. Twisty the Clown. Everybody give it up for Twisty! Woo! Woo! I don't like what he does, but Twisty shows up, goes up to the girl. He gets stuff out of his bag of tricks to show, to kind of perform, and she's just sitting there like, thank you. Boyfriend comes back, and he sees Twisty harassing the girl, and he's like, get away. That kind of gets on Twisty's nerves a little bit. He knocks out the girl, and then she wakes up and looks next to her. He's killing her boyfriend. You find out Twisty is the one that's killing everybody. Twisty! Man! What the hell? Anyway. Damn it. That f***ing fly. She takes off running and screaming. He chases after her. And he takes her back to his den. I don't know what you would call it. It's a school bus that he has gutted the inside of. Cage is up in the back of the school bus. He tosses her in there. We'll come back to that. Okay? Hey, don't look at all that. I look rough, but I have been editing like a fool, okay? Hey, this is editing me. I had some points I wanted to, some things I need to clarify, so I'm gonna jump in from time to time. Sorry. Okay, so I wanted to point out, when Twisty takes the girl from the picnic and he takes her back to the bus, he already has a boy that he's kidnapped. 2 children in the bus. There's a little boy and now the girl from the picnic. So with that all going on, detectives have come by because they're questioning Bet and Dot about their mother's murder. Actually, I should have mentioned it back at the hospital scene. They actually did kill their mom. Who are you? Bet was getting very frustrated with their mother because their mother did not want anybody to know they even existed. Bet says, can we go out and see this movie? We can sneak in after it starts so it's dark, nobody will see us. Mom's like, no. So then they just start going back and forth. Bet gets really angry and Bet kills their mother. After Bet and Dot killed their mother, they're laying in their bed and Dot actually tries to kill Bet in her sleep. She tries to stab her in Bet's heart. It doesn't work though. I just have to point that out that she tried to kill her too. Her sister tried to kill her. Anyway, so that's why Elsa kind of frames them into going into the freak show because she's like, I'll just leave you here for the police to deal with. Detective is in their tent and Jimmy shows up and he's like, what is going on? The detective starts bashing them and calling them freaks and stuff like that. Nobody really likes the freaks other than to come see the show. They don't really have a good rapport with the general population. People think that what their deformities are, you can catch it. The detective says, I don't know what he says, but he's like, who's gonna believe a bunch of freaks? And then Jimmy's like, don't call us freaks. Then Jimmy ends up killing the detective. That's not good. Then they bury the detective, but they keep his badge. We'll pick that up later on. Well, they've gotten word that the show tonight is sold out. We got a sold out show, everybody. Hell yeah. Everybody's in their places. They're ready to fucking rumble. And then you look out in the crowd, 2 people are out there. Gloria Mott. And Gloria Mott is the mother. Mother is mothering. Okay, if you thought Twisty was my favorite character, you ain't ready for this. Dandy Mott, played by Finn Wittrock. I love him. Also, side note, did y'all realize if you were avid Disney Channel fans like your girl here, you watched Halloween Town? Finn Wittrock is in that. He was in Halloween Town 3. Yup. We have Dandy and Gloria. They're very and rich family that owns a lot of frozen food. They just sell, they sell frozen food. So they bought out the entire show. The scene that you see, Gloria looks at Dandy and she says, "Do you like your seat, Dandy?" They're all my seats. I could have anyone I like. Yes, you can. You tell I've watched this too many times. Anyway, it's just to show he's a fucking spoiled brat. Elsa comes out and does her big number. Is there life on Mars? Sailors fighting in the dance hall. Yeah, they start incorporating modern music. So she starts singing David Bowie. At one point, we'll get to it, but she starts singing Lana Del Rey as well. And then Jimmy starts singing Nirvana. It's camp. Just get over it. Don't look into it too much. They're watching the show. They're watching Elsa do her big number. Elsa is gutted. She was under the impression that there was going to be a full house and she was performed to this big group of people. She gets out there and she sees 2 people sitting there and she's like... But while she's performing, Dandy actually sneaks away to the back because he has seen the twins up on stage doing their act. And so then he says, "How much?" Meaning, how much do I need to pay to take you home? Not much for me. Dandy ends up getting a very serious fascination for the freak show. Gloria's like, "How much can we pay for these girls to take them home?" Elsa's like, nothing. They're not for sale. They keep pitching prices. They tell them no. They leave and they go back home. Jimmy has a little side hustle he does. To make a little scratch, he goes to a Tupperware party. Somewhere where there's a lot of women gathering around. He offers some services with his hands. He pleasures girls. He masturbates girls, okay? And he uses his abnormally shaped hands. 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink, maybe, or 2 in the pink, 2 in the stink. I don't know. Elsa, also later on in that episode, Ethel comes in, she's made her some dinner, and she's like, "We're all celebrating. It was a sold out show. Even though it was only 2 people, it was still a sold out show. Everybody's down at the big top. Why aren't you there?" And Elsa's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. She reveals to Ethel, she says, "I really only brought the twins in. I needed a new act to bring new eyes to the show so that they can all see me. I'm the star. I'm the main attraction. That's what they're all coming for, right?" They have kind of a heart-to-heart, whatever. After Ethel leaves, Elsa has a moment alone, and that is where it is revealed that she herself could also be considered a freak. She is seen taking off her legs. She's an amputee on both legs from the knees down. Police are out looking for their detective. They're like, "Well, our detective is gone. God damn. What the hell?" So we need to put out a curfew. Elsa throws a fit because she's like, "That's not when you go see a freak show. You want to see it at nighttime. That adds to the thrill. It's the spookiness of it, the eeriness of it." They're like, "Oh well, figure it out." That is also when a couple blows into town. Del Toledo, the strong man, the stupendous strong man. He is a jackass of all trades. He is Jimmy's father. As far as Jimmy knows, he doesn't know who his father is. He also brings his wife, Desiree. She got 3 boobies. In her words, a full-blown hermaphrodite. She's like, "I got all my lady parts and a dingling." They just left Chicago from another show because Del walks in on Desiree having thick with some guys that are trying to change their stripes, as they say. Guys that are gay, they don't want to be gay because it's back in the 50s and they're like, "Oh, this is hell on earth. I can't be gay." Del walks in on that happening. He beats the hell out of him and just kills him. So they had to leave Chicago. With the new curfew in place, Del is telling Elsa, he's like, "Well, let's have a matinee show." And that's where she goes into her whole spiel of like, "No, we can't have matinee. The whole point is to have it at night." Anyway, Del goes ahead and he takes it upon himself. The troupe, they're not vibing with Del. He's kind of an ass. You remember the badge that they had from the detective? Come up with a plan to plant the badge in Del's caravan. They have their show. Everything's going good. Jimmy sneaks out of the tent and Del's watching him. He doesn't know he's watching him, but Del's watching him and he plants the badge. The next morning, the police show up. They're looking for any evidence that the detective might have been there. Whole camp, they're flipping it upside down looking for something. Well, they find it. They find the badge, but not in Del's caravan. Del was watching. He knew. You ain't slick. He went in there and he planted the badge in Meep's caravan. This poor boy, oh my god. Police use he bites the heads off of chickens, he bites the heads off of everything, he kills things. So yeah, he would have been the one to kill. They think that he's also the one that's doing all the murders around town that Twisty's actually doing, but they think it's him because who else would do it? They take him to the Slammer, they take him to the Clink, and inmates in there gang up on him, and then it fades to black, so you don't really see what's going on. We'll come back to that in a second. Dandy, he's back at home, and their maid comes out. Her name is Dora, and oh my god. Do you know who plays Dora? Patti LaBelle.
Where are my background singers? Woo! Oh, Oh my God.
Dora comes out, puts down a plate, and it's snails, and she's like,
Escargot.
escargot. Gloria's telling Dandy, like, don't put on a sour face. Dora put a lot of work and effort into this. Dandy starts pouting. He has a little hissy fit. He gets up and he leaves. Gloria's like, where are you going? This is like seared into my brain, this line. He says, I don't know. Maybe St. Petersburg, where they have real caramel corn, not that cardboard they sell at the freak show. I will be accepting my Academy Award through the mail. Thank you so much. Dandy goes to the freak show. He asks to join the freak show. I feel like this is my calling in life, to be on stage, to perform. Jimmy is like, there's nothing wrong with you. So he tells him no. And then you see Dandy in his car, head banging into the steering wheel. Twisty actually went by a toy shop. You see a clerk. He's asking for his boss. He's like, hello, where you at? He sees a little robot. Got blood on the bottom of it, and it's leaving a trail of blood. And you see him walk past Twisty. Oh, he goes up to a shelf and he sees his boss's head cut off, severed. It's sitting on the shelf. And then Twisty comes up and kills the clerk. He ends up just walking back home. Lori has gone out to try and find him. She stumbles upon someone walking along the road. Twisty. Yes. She goes, oh, clown. Hey, clown.
Hey, clown.
She brings Twisty the clown back into their home. Dandy comes in. He sees Twisty standing there. It's like the creation of Adam. Or what's that painting where they're like touching hands? It's so stupid. It's really not like that. It's not that serious. Twisty and Dandy, they start having like it's almost like a little play date. They start opening up the toy chest. All the while, Dandy is behind him looking through his bag, Twisty's bag. Twisty, he grabs a bowling pin. The way he does it is kind of funny. He looks like he just does that. He knocks out Dandy and then he leaves. He's like, this, I'm out. Y'all are weird. After he leaves Dandy's house, he's heading back to his bus. And Dandy follows him. Well, the kids have been devising a plan to get out. On the count of 3, we're gonna bust down this cage and we're gonna attack. We're gonna get out of here. They start running. The girl runs in to Dandy and she's like, please, mister, you have to help me. This clown, he's trying to kill us. He's insane. And Dandy's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll help. No, and he scoops her up and takes her back to the bus. And then Twisty's getting the other boy. And so Twisty and Dandy, they have a moment where they look at each other and Dandy says, we need to get much better at confinement if we're going to have any fun. And then they scoop up the kids and put them back in the bus. Back to the Meep story of it all. Jimmy has had some libations and Ethel finds him and Ethel's like, why are you drinking? I was so proud of you for never drinking, because Ethel has had a history. She was like a severe alcoholic. Well, Jimmy's like, I mean, they took Meep and he can't defend himself. He's just a weird guy. Jimmy took the badge. So he's like, it's all my fault for hiding this badge and trying to get rid of Dell. They hear tires skirt up to the front of the big top. They run out there. These guys toss out a bag and then they drive off. Jimmy opens the bag. Meep is dead, torn apart by the inmates of the jail. And they just tossed him out and they were like, here, deal with it. There's a character named Stanley. When he shows up to the freak show, he also will go by the name of Richard Spencer. I'm going to refer to him as Stanley. He is a con artist. He and another character, Maggie, Emma Roberts, barf. I don't want to get into it, but they go around and they find oddities to sell to museums. They've fallen on hard times because they're not finding anything. They did something. Ooh, I almost caught that gnat. He creates stuff from animal parts and tries to pass it off as an oddity. The lady at the museum is like, no. And if you try this again, you will be arrested. They get word of the freak show down in Jupiter. So they're like, oh, that's where we're heading, baby. That's where we're going. So in 1941, Stanley and Maggie meet. Maggie is trying to pass off as like a paperboy, a beggar, pickpocketing people while giving out papers. And she gets caught. Well, Stanley comes up and kind of saves her ass. You need to get off the street. You work with me. Stanley sends Maggie to the freak show to kind of scope everything out and get the lay of the land. She shows up and says she's a fortune teller, is asking Elsa for a job, and she gives her a fake reading. She's bullshitting her way through it. Says, I see great things. You're gonna be a big star one day. You're gonna make it big time. And Elsa's like, hell yeah, brother. She says, you got a job. I swear to God, I'm gonna catch this gnat and you all are gonna witness this. I'm gonna catch it like Mr. Miyagi. Dora has gone up to Gloria and she says, I found some of these parts back in the backyard again, and the neighbors have been missing their cat. So he has a history, and she's bringing it up. She's like, it's happening again. Ethel is having a doctor's appointment and she finds out she has got cirrhosis of the liver from all her days of drinking has caught up to her, and she does not have long to live. I'll give it to you straight. You've got about like 6 months left. He tells her, don't take any more alcohol, don't drink, clean lifestyle. She comes back and she downs a whole bottle of whiskey or something. She gets rip-roaring drunk. It happens to be Halloween. Everybody scream! Dandy's at home, cutting down curtains and making his own twisty costume. Dora, she's like, why the hell? Boy! She's also dressed up as Woody Woodpecker. Did I catch it? He gets ticked at her. He's like, you don't scare me. And he gets mad, so he leaves the house. I don't think I talked enough about Dandy and his characteristics. So many monologues that Dandy has where he's like, I was put on this earth to bring death. I am a god. I feel like I should just hone in on that for a second. There's a little girl going out trick-or-treating with her mom and her older brother, and she is deathly afraid of clowns. So her older brother has dressed up as a clown to torment her. While Twisty is out scoping, surveying, and he follows her home. Her older brother walks into her room in the doorway, teasing her or saying something. I don't know. But she's looking and she just goes like, Twisty is right behind him. He strangles him. They leave out the window. Starts screaming. Mom comes in. She's like, what the what's happening? And she's like, the clown took him. He has another captive. This Halloween is a two-parter. Thank God. This is where you also learn the freaks do not perform on Halloween out of fear of Edward Mordrake. Can you see him? This was a real person. Actually, well, most of these people are. I'm gonna put him over here. So Edward Mordrake, he is born in the 19th century. He was born with a deformity where he actually had a second face on the back of his head. Tells him to do things. He kills a nurse at a hospital called Bedlam Hospital. He goes and he performs for people at parties for his final act. He would take his hat off and take a bow like this, and he would show the back of his head and he would see the face, and everybody would be like, ew. Anyway, he was like, y'all aren't impressed by this? He ends up K-wording himself, hanging himself. And they said that while he was hanging, the face on the back of his head actually was smiling. There's a superstition. He will come back on Halloween night if a freak is performing to go and listen to everybody's story of their life. And if he feels like your story is sad enough, he will take you to the afterlife. You will join his troupe of freaks. The twins come into the big top and everybody's sitting around and they're like, why aren't we getting ready for the show? And everybody's like, you dumb heifers, what the we don't perform. Ethel, she's feeling down in the dumps. She ends up performing. She sings Gods and Monsters by Lana Del Rey. Love that song. She makes all the freaks perform it. The freaks are like, I don't think we should. Edward shows up. He's got this green fog smoke following him. It's kind of spooky. He goes around. He learns about everybody's story. He talks to Ethel. Sorry. Wow. Didn't think about that. Look how much room I have. Yay. I can't believe it. Follow along, people, okay? In 1930, Ethel, she is performing. She surrounds herself with the prettiest women. Says, I dared people to look at anything else once I came onto the stage because she's got the beard, and everybody's like, I have never seen a bearded woman before. It's a hit. And then she meets Dell, and Dell tells her, we need to step up your act. We need to get you to do something different. So he gets her to start reciting Shakespeare, and it's just not, nobody cares. I wrote Ethel and Dell, they get married, they have Jimmy, roughly around 1930. She also reveals to Edward, Dell he was selling tickets for people to watch Ethel give birth. He was sitting up next to like an oak tree or something, squatting, pushing out a baby. Jimmy came out, he had his lobster claws. The worst thing she's ever done is that she put him on display from the moment he was born. He's always been someone to gawk at. Edward hears this, but he says, you're not the one. I'm the one. And he keeps on moving on. He then visits Legless Susie. Legless Susie reveals that she lost her legs due to a spinal disease or a spinal condition. She was actually a beggar out on the street. Like I said earlier, there was such a stigma around people that were different, just their bodies looked different. People thought like, oh my God, I can't get near you or I'm gonna catch what you got. She didn't make a lot of money. People around her were making so much more. Got mad and she stabbed a guy in the back of the leg and he bled out and died. I see that and that somewhere. Hang on. Edward's like, nope, still not you. He runs in on the Pinheads. They're up on the stage. They're having a grand old time. They're just flinging their streamers everywhere. He's like, y'all are fine. Y'all stay. He goes and talks to Paul. He's like, can you imagine the life I could have had if I didn't have my arms like this? I have the face of a beautiful man. He ends up getting tattooed to add more to the shock value of his body. Edward, he says, Paul, you're not it either. Makes his way to the woman of the hour, the woman that was performing and the one that called him Elsa, listening to her story about how she lost her legs. So in 1932, I love how I just this whole timeline up. That's really cool. In her home country of Germany. And she is a prostitute. She's a woman of the night. She is a dominatrix, actually. So popular at her craft that she is able to actually sell tickets for people to watch. Garnered such a reputation that people are paying to watch her. It gets pretty raunchy. She has him pulled by a leash, crawl on all fours over to a toilet seat that's covered in nails and makes him sit on the seats. Like, it gets offered to do a night out with some guys. She ends up getting drugged. They strap her down. They're making a snuff film. If you don't know what a snuff film is, don't look it up. Brutal. It's just they get a sexual satisfaction out of watching people be mutilated and tortured, and it's disgusting. So I don't recommend. In the snuff film, they end up sawing her legs off. Yeah. She loses both of her legs in this weird porn. That is also where you see the man that is doing the sawing off. It is Hans Gruber. I'm not clapping for him, but I'm clapping for the crossover for Asylum. More Asylumism is happening. If you remember me talking about Hans Gruber from season 2, he was actually Dr. Arden, and Frank shows up at the asylum and she accuses him of being at Auschwitz and that he tortured people and did experiments and blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, yeah. Her snuff film gets distributed all over Germany and all over Austria. She ends up revealing that she met someone named Massimo Dolcefino, is a carpenter. Massimo's like, I'm gonna make some legs for you. And he teaches her how to walk again. Elsa's explaining all this to Edward Mordrake, and Edward is just sitting there like, Edward, here's something. Here's some music. You're not it either, Elsa. Elsa's just like, man, I want to die. Jimmy and Maggie, they've started hitting it off a little bit. She needs to make a call to Stanley to let him know, hey, what the is going on over there? Letting him know that there's so many freaks here that they could kill and sell to the museum. He's like, great, I'm heading down there. They're out at a phone booth, her and Jimmy. The police show up and the police are like, curfew is starting in like 3 minutes. And Jimmy's like, we'll be back. Don't worry about us. Again, they don't like each other. Police and the freaks, they're not friends. His motorcycle runs out of gas, so they got to start walking back to camp. And they see a young girl bust out of the tree line. Twisties. The kids have tried it. They're trying to escape yet again. Twisty finds her, brings her back to the site, the bus campsite. And so Jimmy and Maggie are like, we gotta follow him, see what the is going on. They see that kids held hostage. Twisty knocks out Jimmy and Maggie. Tie up Jimmy. Maggie is put into a box. Dandy has put on his Twisty imitation costume, saw this girl in half, and he's like, I've always wondered how this trick works, so he's really going to saw her in half. Jimmy's able to free Maggie. He frees the kids. They all leave. Dandy's like running after them, and he's standing in a field, and he's like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Twisty's still there because he gets visited by Edward Mordrake. Heard his little piano sound. This is where you find out Twisty's story. He's a part of a circus called Rusty Westchester's Traveling Circus. The little kids love Twisty, and he looks so nice and clean. He looks fresh. Well, the little people that are off to the side, they're like, him. They're extremely perverted and very much pedos. Watching the kids interact with Twisty, they devise a plan. Get rid of Twisty. They basically flip the script. You love the kids. You might like them a little bit too much, huh? And we're going to tell on you. We're going to tell the police. And Twisty's like, what? No, I don't like them like that. I like making them laugh and bringing them joy. 1943, Twisty ends up leaving. He heads back home to Jupiter. He wants to go see his mom, and he's like, I'll just and live down here, I guess. He finds out that his mom has actually died. He starts to make these little toys, these little trinkets, but nobody's buying them. He's trying to sell them to a local toy store, and it's like a callback because you remember he killed the toy store owner. Owner was like, nobody wants this shit. This is garbage. This is gross. Nobody's wanting to buy his stuff. His mom's dead. People think he's a pedophile. He's really down in the dumps, tries to take his own life. He gets a shotgun. He doesn't do it right, and he only takes off the lower jaw. And that is where he creates this mask. Beautiful mask. Edward hears this story, and he's like, damn, this is sad. So Edward ends up taking Twisty into his afterlife of freaks. Watching the show, you would think Twisty he has a big part, obviously, but you would think he would be around a lot longer. But he's really not. I mean, everybody thinks that Freak Show is like,
oh my god, there's an evil clown.
Well, yeah, there is. But he's really not here for that long. Justice for Twisty. Okay. Nobody knew it was Dandy with Twisty and Maggie in the box. Nobody knew it was Dandy because Dandy had his mask on. After that whole debacle, the police are there getting statements and stuff. Curfew is lifted. The next morning, big crowd of people come to the Freak Show and they want to give thanks. They bring food. So things may seem all good in the hood right now, but just you wait. Dandy heads back home after his night of mayhem. He's frustrated. He is so flustered. Dora comes up to him and is just haggling him again about cutting the curtains up, working up his mother's nerves. He snaps. Dandy ends up killing Dora. No, Dandy, damn. In the next episode, Gloria comes downstairs because she says, Dora, it's past 7. I don't hear the percolator on. And she sees Dora is laying on the floor in the dining room and she's slashed. Dandy comes in. Immediately she knows it's Dandy and she's like, what the did you do? First he's like, no, I didn't do anything. This isn't me. And she goes, I don't want to see you for the rest of the day. And he looks like he's worried, but then he turns around and he starts smiling. He's like, fuck that. Fuck her. Oh my God. I didn't even put up his picture. Massimo. Danny Houston again, everybody. Give it up. I love Danny Houston. Desiree, her and Dell, they ended up having a fight. So she's drinking. Jimmy finds her in her caravan. He's trying to console her. Well, they end up starting having fun with one another. And Jimmy uses his claws like he does with the girls at the Tupperware party. Well, then she just goes like, ow, oh my God, ow, stop. And he pulls his hand out. He's got blood all over his hand. Ethel ends up taking Desiree to the doctor. And the doctor reveals she had a miscarriage. That was what the blood was. And that she is also 100% female. And she's like, well, what about my dingling? And he says, it's not a penis. You just had an enlarged clitoris. Like you had an excess amount of testosterone. That's what made your enlarged clitoris. It was a chemical imbalance. So that was also what made you grow another teat. He says like, well, I could do some surgery and just trim it down a little bit if it really bothers you. And he also lets her know that she is able to have children. She tells Dell, she's like, I'm fucking out of here. Goodbye. I'm not even a man. I'm not even part man, part woman, whatever. I am full woman. Hear me roar. She tells him that the doctor's going to give her surgery to get rid of that enlarged clitoris. Can I say clitoris? She's leaving Dell because she wants to go and find someone new and have a baby. Now, also, she knows that Jimmy is his son. So that's why she's like, I don't want a baby with you because look what you did to Jimmy. You left him. Dell, he finds that doctor and he ends up breaking his hands. The doctor kills himself because he can't do anything. Like that was his livelihood. His hands are his career. Reason why Dell is a little bit animated about all this. Dell's a gay. He is a gay. He likes peen, okay? Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with a little peen. So Dell he has been he has been going to a local gay bar pretty often. And he meets up with another man named Andy, artist. And he's like, I can go out to Santa Monica and do portraits on the pier for 10 cents. So him and Dell talk about leaving. They have this fantasy of we can be with each other somewhere else. And Dell, he won't openly admit that he's gay because he sees that as not being masculine and he's the strong man. Dell and Andy end up having an argument and Dell ends up leaving the bar. Dandy comes up to Andy. Are you following along? Because this is saying all these names out loud. Dell, Andy, Dandy. Andy's sitting there. Dandy walks up to him. Because also the gay bar, you can pick up some hookers. I'll pay you. You come back with me. Andy's following Dandy, end up going to Twisty's school bus. Cute date night idea. Andy starts to try and get something going, but Dandy's like, I don't want this.
I'm not a fruit.
You paid money for me to be here with you. What did you want to do? Dandy tells him, you turn around, I'll turn around. We'll both get undressed. And then on the count of 3, we'll turn around and whatever happens, happens. They count to 3. They turn around. Dandy is wearing Twisty's mask and he ends up killing Andy. He stabs the holy hell out of him. Back at the freak show, Stanley has shown up and he tells Elsa he is a Hollywood agent. And then he starts telling her actually the way that the world is going is television. Like you should have your own talk show. She's like, I don't want to do that. Television is the death of film. He's like, look, we can get you your own talk show, the Elsa Mars Hour. He also sees the twins trying to sweet talk him a little bit. He takes them out on a picnic, trying to give them poisoned cupcakes. There's a vision that he sees what he would like to have happen. Bet ends up eating the cupcake. She gets sick. She starts foaming at the mouth. Dot is looking at Stanley like, help me. She's saying, oh my God, it hurts so much. I can't hear her. And Stanley just gives her the other cupcake. Sarah Paulson has just the funniest way of saying things. Maybe it's just because I see it in memes and it makes me laugh. Stanley goes, Dot, cupcake? And Dot goes, I don't want a cupcake. And his vision ends up killing both of them, cutting their heads off, putting them in the museum. It don't happen because, he's offering them the cupcakes. And then Dot says, if we're going to be in Hollywood, if we're going to be on screen, we need to watch our figure. We can't have desserts no more. Drat. Doesn't work. But Elsa saw Stanley taking the twins out on a picnic, and she gets a little jelly. She gets pretty jealous, and she's like, well, no, not all of us are getting a Hollywood deal. I just want the deal. And so she starts devising a plan, ends up taking the twins. She says, I see you had a meeting with Stanley, and he's going to be taking you to Hollywood. So she says, oh, well, let me go take you for dress fitting. We need to get you proper clothes to go out to Hollywood. She takes them not to get a dress. She takes them to Dandy. Dandy and Gloria pay for the twins. So everybody in the troupe is like, what the happened? What happened? Where'd they go? They're like, that just seems so weird that they would just up and leave. It's Elsa's birthday. She ends up actually bringing out a spinning wheel. You know, you strap somebody up and you throw knives at them. Said that was like one of her tricks that she learned through the years. Like, well, I need to have an act on my first opening show when I go and start the Elsa Mars hour. Everybody's kind of just bummed. And Elsa's like, what is going on? We're all worried about the twins. Why do you think they left? Elsa's getting mad because she's like, just stop talking about the twins. Starts yelling at everybody saying, you guys are being so ungrateful to me. It's about me. You all would not be here if it weren't for me, if I didn't come and scoop you up off the street. You need to show me a little respect. And they're like, we do respect you. And she's like, well, prove it and get up on the wheel. Paul ends up volunteering to get on the wheel. He says, don't miss. And she says, I always miss. That's the point. That is so, oh yeah, serve. She throws a knife. It hits him in the ribs. They get him down. She's like, oh my God, that's never happened to me before. They're like, call an ambulance, call an ambulance, but not for me. She doesn't end up calling the doctor. She's like, meh, he'll be all right. Do you remember when I first started all this? I was talking about another character named Penny. In the early half of the season, she doesn't have that big of a role. Go back with me. Come on back. Hang on. Bring it back. When Elsa goes to meet the twins at the hospital and she runs into her there, you come see the cabinet of curiosities. Penny comes running in there and she's like, I'm calling the police. You guys drugged me. You fucking me. I don't even know what. I have just had a night and I don't know where I'm at or what happened. Elsa's like, sit down, watch this. They videotaped everything. Penny was more than willing and happy to be there with all of the freaks, and that she actually ended up really liking all of the debauchery, the drugs, the drinking, the sex. She was like, oh, I guess I did like it. Okay, slay. Penny's been hanging around the freak show. You don't really see her until this point. She's got a bit of a crush on Paul. She hears that Paul has been hurt, helping nurse him back to health. She goes back home to get her stuff. She's like, well, I'm just gonna fucking move to the freak show. Her home life is not great. Her and her dad do not get along. He's very conservative and she's a little bit more free-spirited. And he's like, where do you think you're going? She says, I'm getting my stuff and I'm leaving. I'm not coming back. And he says, oh, I'll be damned. She's knocked out. Dad has got a friend, an artist friend. They lay her on the couch. He starts tattooing all over her face. Her own father tattooed her face, shaved her head, forked her tongue, so she would be the astounding lizard girl. That's why I didn't show her picture, first of all. That happened, yeah. Also, I think the actress that plays Penny, I think that's Meryl Streep's daughter. At the Mott household, Dandy and Bet, no. Which one is it? Yeah, Dandy and Bet, they end up actually hitting it off. Remember, Bet, she's just mystified and oohs and ahs about life. Taken more to Dandy than Dot definitely is. Dot is like, this is fucking torture being here. Dot has been reading about a surgery that has taken place, set of twins called the Brody twins. They had successfully separated the twins. And so she gets the idea, she's like, Danny's got money. I bet we can get him to pay for the surgery. Dot is really wanting to be her own person. She's sick of this life. She gets a bug up her ass about this doctor that separated the twins. There's a part where Paul is out buying perfume for Penny at the drugstore and he sees Dandy, and Dandy's buying 2 of everything. All these feminine products, hairbrushes, makeup, hairband, bows. So he's looking at it like, what are you doing? Paul lets Jimmy know that he saw Dandy at the store buying 2 of everything. Then that kind of gives him the hint, like, oh, the twins might be over there with Dandy. Back at the freak show, Maggie tells Jimmy, she's like, let's just leave. You and me, let's go. So he says, yeah, okay, I'll do that. But I want to find the twins first. He goes to the Mott estate. When Jimmy goes to get the twins from Dandy, Dandy has told the twins that he was the one that saved the kids from the killer clown Twisty. It wasn't, it was Jimmy. They look at each other and Jimmy's like, you were the one that was trying to kill Maggie and you were helping Twisty Ooh. So then he's like, Bet, Dot, you need to leave with me right now. He's trying to convince them to come back to the show. Dandy actually reveals to Dot, I read what you wrote in your diary about getting the surgery. I'm not going to let you do that. I bought you because you look like the way you do. And so she gets really beside herself that Dandy even looked into her diary. The last straw, and she says, all right, we're leaving. Also, I have another character to add. Dora has a daughter, Regina, and Regina has been calling to get in touch with her mother to have their weekly phone call while she's away at school. She calls Gloria and she says, hey, have you seen my mom? Do you know where she's at? She didn't answer my phone call. Gloria took Dora's body and she buried it very, very deep down in their garden. Oh, there was something I saw online. I didn't even notice it. It was a plant. It was a narcissum, I think is what it's called, or narcissa. And I didn't even pick it up. Play on words because Dandy's a narcissist. I didn't even pick that up. God, they think of everything here. Gloria keeps making up excuses like, oh, well, she went into town to get me some squash. The twins are back. And that is also where Jimmy does Come As You Are by Nirvana. Okay. Elsa doesn't like it, but he's like, I'm not changing anything. Jimmy, he's like, I found the twins. They're back. And Elsa's like, what? You sold them to Dandy. What the fuck? Well, the twins show up behind Elsa and they just start saying she only did it because we asked her to. And they start flipping the script because they're blackmailing. He said, no, we wanted to go see Dandy. We wanted a taste of the high life. But later on, behind closed doors, Elsa goes up to the twins and she's like, okay, what do you want? Bet and Dot, they say, we want 50% off the box office, 50% of the box office. All of the money that Elsa got from selling the twins to Dandy. Top billing. Bet's like, I want to dye my hair blonde too. Another stipulation that Dot had was that she wanted to get in touch with the surgeon that did the surgery for the Brody twins. She wants to be separated. So Elsa says, fine, I'll do all that. Let's go back to Del's story. Well, he's been visiting the gay bars again. He's looking for Andy. So he's asking the bartender, he's like, have you seen him anywhere? Bartender's like, nope. And that's why you don't fall in love at the bar. Del freaks out, beating up the bartender. Stanley is over in a booth watching all this happen. Do you see him? I see the gnat. Stanley goes up to Del and he says, you want to go out for a drink somewhere? Why don't we go to High Noon? That's the gay bar. And Del's like, what? I saw you there earlier, and I'll forget this all I ever saw you if you get me a freak. I need to sell a freak to this museum of curiosities. He agrees because God forbid anybody knows that he's gay. He ends up actually trying to go after Eve. She's like a whole foot taller than him. She's like a black belt in karate. Karate chops his ass out of her caravan. The rest of the troop finds out that he went into her caravan and tried to kill her. Then Jimmy, he gets Del out to a bar and he's like, all the women here, they're gonna fucking kill you. Del's getting Jimmy really drunk because he's thinking about killing Jimmy and taking his lobster hands. Jimmy starts, I think I did it. People. I did it. Del gets Jimmy. Jimmy starts telling a story about Mon Petit. You see Del's eyes light up. He's like, Jimmy's like, I'm gonna fucking puke. So he runs out of the bar. Del comes up behind him with a brick and he's thinking about killing him. But then Jimmy says, I know who you are. I know you're my dad. I don't know why you don't have the lobster claws. Your family's lineage and everybody in your family other than Del has lobster claws. Hearing that story about Mon Petit has given Del the idea to go after Mon Petit because she's so tiny. She can't fend for herself. He gets her a dress. He's like, I got you something. She tries the dress on. She's like, oh my God, thanks so much. It looks great. She gives him a hug. He smothers Mon Petit and kills her. Oh my God! He gives her to Stanley and Stanley puts her in the Museum of Curiosities. So Elsa and Stanley, they've been having a meeting about like getting the ball rolling for Hollywood. Like, I need to go ahead and pay off these twins, get them off my back. So she tells Stanley, I need you to get in touch with the surgeon so they can come by and talk to Bet and Dot and get them separated, whatever. Stanley says he makes a statement about killing them. Well, Ethel, she's been bringing in their dinner and she sticks around and she hears them say that. Elsa doesn't say, well, no, oh no, we can't kill them. So she's like, it's an interesting idea. It's like, she's not gonna do it, but Ethel just hears that. So Ethel was like gutted. Oh my God, you would do anything for fame. The next morning, they're looking for Mon Petit. They go out in the woods, find her dress tore up, bring it back to Elsa, and they say, think maybe an animal got her. Elsa starts freaking the fuck out. Ethel's sitting back and she's watching Elsa sitting there and she's like, later on, Elsa is in her tent and Ethel comes in. She was like, you put on the performance of a lifetime. Elsa's looking at her like, what? And she says, I know, I heard you talking about killing the twins, so you had to have killed Mon Petit. She's like, I would not have killed her. She was my most precious one. Ethel ends up, she has a gun because she's warned her before. When the twins went missing, when she sold them to Dandy, she had let Elsa know, if I find out that you did anything to these girls, I will kill you myself. When Ethel thinks that Elsa killed Mon Petit, she's like, I'm going to kill you. She shoots her in the leg. Then she finds out her leg is wooden. And she lets her know about the snuff film. She lets her know about Massimo, how he created the legs for her. And then they start having a spat again. Elsa ends up throwing a knife and hitting Ethel right in the eye, and she kills Ethel. Stanley comes in and he's like, okay, well, we'll make it look like she killed herself. They take Ethel's body, her in a car, put a chain around her neck and tie the chain to a tree trunk, brick on the gas pedal, and they send the car flying and it takes her head off. Maggie ends up finding her. She said, I was out picking flowers for Ma Petite's funeral and I heard this crash. She's telling this to Jimmy. She's like, I'm sorry, Jimmy, but your mom's dead. Jimmy starts spiraling pretty bad, develops a drinking problem very quickly. Well, Elsa, she goes out to do more recruiting. She goes to a local weight loss clinic. She finds someone there named Barbara. Barbara, she tells her, everybody thinks I'm disgusting, but I don't mind myself like this. I like being bigger. I don't mind it. Elsa's like, I'll take you somewhere where you can be celebrated for your size. So she's like, yeah. Barbara shows up at the freak show. Elsa gives her the name, performing under the name I'm a Wiggles. Named after the most famous fat lady to ever perform, I'm a Waddler. Jimmy's there and Jimmy's like, why did you bring her here? And Elsa says, rest on her bosom. It'll mimic your mom's breast. It'll feel like your mom's body. It'll feel like a warm hug from your mom. She brought her there as an attraction, but also to help Jimmy cope with losing his mom. This is a random picture that I have. I wanted to make sure I covered everybody in the freak show, so I printed off a picture of not everybody, but most of the freak show family portrait. Regina shows up at the Mott house again. She is talking to Gloria and she's like, my mom ain't buying squash. Where the f is she? And Gloria's like, she'll be back later on. Regina's like, fine, I'll come back later. Dandy tells Gloria, you know, she's not stupid. She's gonna figure it out. If I get caught and I go to the electric chair, I'm taking you with me and you're gonna sit on my lap. He's like, don't it up. Gloria ends up trying to trick Dandy into seeing a therapist. One of the episodes opens up with her talking to this therapist and she's talking about like her concerns of her son. Well, Dandy figures out that it's a therapist appointment. He gets fucking ticked. Also, I didn't mention, and I really should because for future seasons coming up, Dandy feels very betrayed that his mother would even send him to therapy, thinking there's something wrong with him. He finds out that Gloria, her father, lost all their money in the crash of 29. So she, in a desperate attempt to keep money in the family, she married a first cousin or a second cousin, and that was Dandy's dad. Dandy's dad has already got some issues because they don't say what he did, but he says, you know what father did to those girls. But what might that mean? Something sexual? He killed some girls? It could be both. I don't know. His father has a history of doing some dark, twisted stuff. And then also Dandy blames Gloria because he says, you know the chances of inbreeding. Goes back home. He shoots Gloria. He shoots his own mother. Dandy, you can't do that. Talking to the therapist in that appointment, he says he was reading about tribe in Papua New Guinea, about how they bathe in blood. I think that sounds really smart. I've always wanted to know certain energies from bathing in blood. Dandy visits a freak show and he ends up going to see Maggie for a fortune teller reading, and she tells him that he is going to have some trials and tribulations. He will come out on top. He's leaving feeling high and mighty. Okay, so the twins, they're missing again. Elsa and Stanley have taken them to a shack right outside the grounds because they're waiting there for the surgeon to come. Jimmy is running after Dandy and he's like, what did you do with the twins? You took them last time. You must know where they're at now. Dandy's like, I don't know anything about the twins. Jimmy ends up going out to do another Tupperware party endeavor. You know, the girls come out of the room and they're like, he's not on his A game tonight. He's drunk as hell. He keeps missing. It's not good. So they kick him out. Dandy shows up to the Tupperware party. My car broke down. Can I come in and use your phone real quick? The lady's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, come on in. He kills everybody. He kills the entire party. And then he takes their blood home in the Tupperware containers. Regina comes back. Where the hell is my mom? And Dandy just fesses up. He's like, Regina, I killed her. And I just killed my mom too. He says, why don't you come take a bath with me like when we were kids? So Regina's like, no. He lets Regina go. Regina goes, gets the detective, comes back to the house. She's telling the detective that Dandy killed his mom. He killed her mom. Dandy turns, I'll give you $1 million if you kill her and you help me cover up some of these murders. The detective wastes no time. He doesn't hesitate. He turns around, shoots Regina in the head. My God. The detective ends up pinning the Tupperware party murders on Jimmy. Are you kidding me? This is it. Bet and Dot, they're having a moment out in this little shack because the whole time Dot has been really wanting to have this surgery to get separated, but they said the Brody twins actually didn't end up living. One died or both of them died. Bet is really nervous about it. Dot is like, yeah, it's kind of scary, but like we're gonna be our own person. They're having a heart to heart, and then they end up deciding not to go through with it, which is a good thing because Stanley obviously didn't call the surgeon. He was gonna go in there and put them to sleep and cut their heads off anyway and sell it to the museum. So they come back to the show. They end up seeing Jimmy Jimmy in his caravan. Dot professes her love for Jimmy, and he says, I'm sorry, I don't love you. I love someone else, meaning Maggie. They get shot down, and then right after that, they hear police sirens pull up, and then Jimmy is arrested for the murder of all the women at the Tupperware party. This is going to get a little, just stay with me here. Poor Salty, where are you at? He has died. He has had a stroke in his sleep and he is dead. Pepper is beside herself. The whole episode, I was crying nonstop. Here's a picture I took. Desiree, she's reading to Pepper, trying to calm her down, and it's time to get ready for the show. Pepper starts freaking out. Desiree goes to Elsa and she says, we need to get her some help. And so then Elsa goes into talking about how she came about meeting Pepper. When Elsa comes over from Germany, and after she's been with the gypsies for a little bit, she stumbles upon an orphanage. She finds Miss Pepper sitting there. Father left before she was born, I believe, and her mother had just died. She had an older sister, but the sister couldn't take care of her. So Elsa takes her and she says, she was my first one, my first of the whole bunch. And that is also where you see Ma Petite origin story for the troop. An Indian prince, and he comes in with Ma Petite on a chain. She's offering to buy Ma Petite. He says, I would never give her up for any amount of money. And she says, okay. She pops open a Dr. Pepper. I don't know if it was like a play on words, being Pepper, Dr. Pepper. And he gives Ma Petite up for 3 cases of Dr. Pepper. Ma Petite can be Pepper's child. Play pretend that that's her child. Finds Salty. Pepper and Salty end up falling in love, and they end up having a wedding. They get married. Yes! Oh my god, how exciting. So now that Salty's died, she's just heartbroken. She's completely shattered. So Desiree says, well, we need to find that sister again, and we'll take Pepper to her. This is where I started crying, people. Oh my god. She goes, she finds the sister. The sister is a drunk. I think her name was Rita. Rita doesn't know anything about taking care of anybody, not even herself. She's married and they kept trying to have kids. She said, I had clogged pipes. I couldn't have kids. Says, well, great. You can look after Pepper. Elsa ends up leaving Pepper with her sister Rita, and it's so sad. Elsa gives her a kiss on the side of her hand and she says, whenever you miss me, hold your hand up to your face. It'll be a kiss from me. Call back, okay? Do you remember? Oh, my back. Hang on. Oh, I didn't mark it down yet, but around this time, Atlanta Banana, she goes to the asylum and she meets Pepper. Sister Mary Eunice says that Pepper was brought in because she sliced her sister's baby's ears off. Do you remember when I told you that? Well, here's the real story. Rita is at Briarcliff, and Rita is explaining to Sister Mary Eunice why she's bringing Pepper there. I was pregnant and I was gonna have a baby. Lucas was born. They just don't like Pepper. Also, sister being a drunk and just lazy, and the husband is just a crotchety as hell. Pepper is basically raising the child. The husband comes home every day. He's upset with the baby crying. The husband says, you never bonded with that baby anyway. And Rita's like, yeah, I know, you're right. So he says, we're on the same page, right? They devise a plan. The husband goes into the bathroom where Pepper is bathing the baby. He yanks Pepper out of the room, and Pepper's banging on the door. She hears some screaming from the baby. She goes back in there. It's full of blood. The baby is dead. The husband, he ended up killing the baby. They framed Pepper to get her out of their hair. And she ends up at Briarcliff, and Sister Mary Eunice takes her under her wing. And there is a point. Now it's a time jump. Don't get confused, but we're skipping ahead. Mary Eunice is like, you can help me organize these books and magazines. And Pepper picks up a Life magazine and she sees Elsa on the front of it, and it says the Elsa Mars Hour. But you know, it's a hit and everybody loves it. A magazine from 1958. It's just a time jump, and it lets you know that Elsa does make it into Hollywood. When she sees the magazine, she holds her hand to her cheek like it's the kiss that Elsa gave her. It's so, you realize that's the end of Pepper's story in this season, but if you watched Asylum, then you know how it ends for her. She ends up getting abducted by aliens. She ends up dying in the asylum. Stanley ended up cutting up Salty. He told Elsa that he would take care of his body, that he was going to have it cremated. Then he went and he cut the head off of Salty. So then he took Salty's head to the museum. Back to the whole Jimmy situation of it all. He's sitting in jail right now. Stanley comes to visit him in jail, and he says, we need to get you a really good lawyer to get you out of here. Jimmy's like, don't have enough money. I can't afford one. Well, Stanley says, we can sell your hand, you know. There's some museums around here that pay to have a hand like yours. He gives him something. He gives him a little vial of something. Jimmy starts having like a stomach ache. He's throwing up. Take him to the hospital. Jimmy wakes up. He looks at one of his hands. One of them is gone. He looks at the other is gone. Stanley has cut off both of his hands. Maggie ends up breaking down and confessing. She takes Desiree to the museum to see Ma Petite's body. They see Salty's head. Maggie sees the lobster claws. Here is our last character to add to the list is Chester, Neil Patrick Harris, if you will, and his doll Marjorie. So he comes by the freak show because he has a magic act, a ventriloquist act with Marjorie as well. He sells lizards or something like that. He sells chameleons, I guess. He tells Elsa, he's like, well, if I could just sell some of my chameleons in front of the show, you can have 50% of my earnings. And she looks at his books that he keeps, as he's good with numbers. So she's like, all right, you can stay. Chester and the twins end up having a relationship. They end up having sex. Find out Marjorie, she is the voice inside of Chester's head. Nobody else can hear Marjorie, but sometimes it'll cut between the doll, the real Marjorie, what Chester sees, telling him like, the twins don't love you. I'm the only person that actually understands you. She's the manipulative side of his brain. Dandy has found out the twins are involved with Chester. So he does some digging of Chester's past and meeting with the twin.
I behaved like an absolute jackass that last day.
He gives him a file on Chester about what has happened. When Chester came back home from war, he had the metal plate in his head. He's pretty fucked up. He catches his wife cheating on him with another woman. They start fooling around on the bed. They say, come on, Chester, why don't you join us? He's sitting there with his doll, with Marjorie. They tease him. He says, like, I'm going to the garage. I'm going to work on my magic act. One night he flips. In his mind, he sees Marjorie killing his wife and Alice, but in reality, he was the one that killed. So the twins find out about that. The twins were going to be his assistants, his beautiful assistants. When they found out that he killed people, they were like, Dell and Eve, they end up stopping the police car that's taking Jimmy back to jail. They get in there, they start beating up everybody that's driving, and they get Jimmy. They take him to the shack where the twins were originally going to have their surgery, him in hiding, and Elsa gets in touch with Massimo. He is going to build new hands for Jimmy. Maggie tells Elsa what happened to Ma Petite's body. Dell comes into his caravan. Desiree's sitting there with a gun. She's like, who'd you kill? And he confesses, he says, I killed Ma Petite. Bop! Elsa kills Dell because she heard him confess. She says, that's all I needed to know. Truthfully, Dell got on my nerves, so it's all right. That means that they know that Stanley was behind all of this too. The troupe is throwing a dinner, Elsa's final show, to welcome Chester, because Elsa has actually sold the show to Chester. She's like, I'm leaving, you can have it. They tell Chester, we need to spend one last night as a family. And all of the freaks are there with Stanley. Hey, another callback to Asylum. We were gonna have a movie night for you. Legless Susie, she tells Elsa, she's like, oh, are we watching The Sign of the Cross again? They talk about another movie, a movie about a group of freaks go on a killing spree and kill someone, and they're basically describing what they're gonna do to Stanley. And Stanley's like, I think I need to leave. So they all attack him. While they're attacking Stanley, Stanley lets them know that Elsa actually killed Ethel. They end up actually cutting off his limbs. They put him in Meep's outfit. They put him in a cage and keep him in the cage. So they don't really kill him right away. They're all having a run through of how the show is going to work. Now that Elsa is leaving, the twins tell Chester that they don't want to be his assistant anymore. Why the hell not? They just say, well, just cause. He starts getting mad. Maggie ends up volunteering for one of his acts. What did they call it? I mean, it's a sawing box. Like, you saw him in half. He's starting to have an episode. He starts seeing his wife and Alice, the one that was cheating with his wife on. He starts seeing her face on Maggie's face. He ends up sawing the box, and Maggie's like, I'm not ready yet. No, this isn't how it works. He ends up sawing Maggie in half, and Maggie dies. Goodbye. You know what, Emma Roberts, I'll give you credit. You were not so annoying in this season. She wasn't that horrible. Chester, after he sawed Maggie in half, he ended up going back to his caravan. Marjorie personified was sitting there laughing at him. Why are you leaving? I love you so much. And he starts killing her. She's a doll. She's not real. It's his imagination. He goes to the police station carrying Marjorie covered in blood, and he says, committed a murder. I need to turn myself in. And the police are like, what are you talking about? Shows him the doll. Send me to the chair. And that's the end of his story. So they either sent him to the chair or they locked him up in the loony bin. Massimo, he's making hands for Jimmy. They were talking about, like, we can give you real looking hands now. And he gives him his hands, and they look like his lobster claw hands. And he's like, thank you. Because that's all he's known in life. The troop pick up on what Stanley was saying, that Elsa did kill Ethel. So the troop is rallying up. They're gonna go kill her. Elsa's gone. She called up Dandy, sold Dandy the freak show for $10,000. Dandy is in charge of the freak show. They go and put up a new banner saying that he's headlining the show. And when they come back, he's like, how many tickets have we sold? And they're like, none. Dandy's getting frustrated. He's having an argument with all of the freaks. They kick him down and they say, we don't work for you. We're leaving. Guys, he comes out in this really nice, clean, white and red suit. Paul ends up walking up to him and he says, we need to discuss our last paycheck. Dandy pulls out a gun. Bop! Shoots Paul right in the head. Oh my god. Penny hears this. She starts hiding. Dandy finds her. Pop! Shoots her in the head. He goes around. He kills every single freak that's there except for Bet and Dot and Desiree. Desiree was hiding in her caravan. Everybody is dead. After the massacre has happened, Jimmy ends up finding his way back. He goes into the big top and he sees all of the troop has been lined up and he sees that everybody has been killed. Then Desiree comes out, she puts her hand on his shoulder, and then you find out that Dandy has actually kept the twins tied up. I'm taking you back home. We're going to be married. They go back to Dandy's house and then they end up tricking Dandy, get married, and then they're having their first dinner together. The twins end up spiking Dandy's drink and so he starts feeling fuzzy. Desiree comes in dressed as a maid and she sits down at the table and he's like, "You're a very poorly trained maid." "I ain't no maid." Rips open her shirt and he's like, "You." And then Jimmy comes in dressed up as the butler. Piece of paper on it. It says like, "You are cordially invited to the performance of Dandy Mod," or something like that. Dandy passes out. They take Dandy back to the freak show. They get Harry Houdini escape tank, chain Dandy up to the bottom of the tank, start filling the tank up with water. And Dandy the whole time is trying to buy his way out. It's a mess. Jimmy, Desiree, Bet and Dot get some chairs. They sit out in the audience and they just watch the tank fill up and Dandy dies. We're going to cut to a couple years later. Elsa, she did leave the freak show. She ended up going out to Hollywood when she first got there, waiting around for the head of a broadcasting company. She meets this man who's a vice president of the company. They hit it off. They get married. He becomes her manager. He makes it big in Hollywood. She gets the Elsa Mars Hour. She gets a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. They ask her to perform on Halloween. She says, "Nope, I don't perform. I don't do that." You can see it later on in her career. Her and her husband, they don't get along at all. She thinks he's a pussy. Actually, Massimo comes out to see her, to visit with her. It's like, "Oh my god, Massimo, I f***ing hate it here." Like I said earlier, she says, "I made a wish on my birthday and all I wished for was to be loved." So she's asking Massimo, she's like, "Why don't we just go run away and live out the rest of our days?" And he says, "I would, but I'm really sick. I have a lung disease. I'm gonna die in like a month or two." So she's like, damn it. That ends their story. Because I didn't talk about it, but Massimo and her had a whole love story. Wrong timing, wrong place, all that jazz. Husband, manager, and the head of the broadcasting company show up. If this is about performing on Halloween, I'm not doing it. Stop asking me. Edward Mordrake, you remember him? Found your snuff film that you made. Someone from the press is going to release it. Her career is basically done. Also, she did find out that the freaks down in Jupiter, they say the freaks all died. So then she says, "You know what? I will perform on Halloween." So it's basically her suicide. Edward shows up and you actually see Twisty. He's there with them. Edward, he's heard her story before and he's like, "All right, you're ready. I'm going to take you." But instead of taking her into his troupe, he actually ends up taking her back to her freak show. And you see all of the freaks that have died. And so in her afterlife, she is headlining her own freak show again. And that is the end of American Horror Story Freak Show Season 4. Everything I have is about to die, so if this just cuts off randomly, I am so exhausted. I wanted to get this one right because this is my favorite season. Again, I didn't hit every single fine detailed point, so forgive me. Once again, I'm going to clean up the board and we're going to get ready for season 5. Let's just have a memoriam moment because this was also Miss Jessica Lange's last season until Apocalypse. So let's just play her out. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, bye. Well, sweaties, here I am. I'm cosplaying as Lady Gaga today. It's my hair turban for when I take a shower, so no promises as to what it looks like in the back. Let's not waste any more time. We know why we're here. I'm gonna tell you one heck of a story, okay? Anyway, let's get started with season 5 of American Horror Story Hotel. Yeah, 4.2, baby. I'd only seen the season once, like when it first was airing. I enjoyed it when it first came out. I didn't mind it. It wasn't my favorite. When I rewatched it this last time, I was like, you know what? This is really good. There's a murder mystery thing happening and I'm a sucker for that. I love a good whodunit. Okay, that's just me. We're gonna start in 2015 and we are back in LA, baby. Going to take place at a hotel called the Hotel Cortez. Our first characters that we're gonna meet, 2 Swedish girls. Hang on, I'm gonna get it wrong. Valinda and Agnetha? I don't know. We're gonna call them the Swedes. Out to LA from Sweden because they're like, oh my god, we want to see all of the theme parks. We want to see all the sites. And they ask the driver, how close is Universal Studios? And the driver is like, it's like 10 miles away. And to them, that's a big deal. But for me, I'm like 10 miles away. That's not bad. Just get a cab. Anyway, they go inside and they meet the concierge. I guess she's the concierge. I don't know. She's running the front desk. Iris, Kathy Bates, come on now. And they say, can we get our money back? Because we thought the hotel was going to be a lot closer to the park. And Iris is like, no, we don't give refunds. There's no Wi-Fi. It's a dead zone for all cell service. Completely off the grid. Then Valinda leaves to go get some ice down the hallway. When she's walking down the hall, she passes someone who Mrs. Evers. She is the maid of the hotel, the laundress. Trying to wash out a blood stain in a sheet. Oh, she gets off if somebody's got a stain on the sheets. Oh my God, you just made her day. She loves to clean. Anyway, and she says, oh, there was a ghastly accident in room 51. Belinda goes, gets the ice. She starts seeing blonde children everywhere, little blonde boys and girls. Like that, just like a bottle of peroxide just fell on top of them. She sees these little blonde children at the end of the hallways, and she's like, okay. They're in the room and they're both like, it stinks in here. They concur that the smell is coming from the mattress. So they take off all the sheets. They see that the mattress is sewn down the middle. Cut it open. And nothing happens for a second. But then this man comes crawling out of the mattress. He looks like he's been in there for months. And he starts spazzing out. And then they go and get Iris. This has never happened before. But I'll move you to one of our special rooms that we never rent out. Room 64. Room 64 is its own character. So they go in there. They get comfortable-ish. They fall asleep. Well, Valinda wakes up at 2:25 a.m. She goes to the bathroom. Agnetha's on the floor. The little blonde children are sucking on her blood. All right, we'll pick up their story in just a second, but there is another character we got to talk about right now. This is John Lowe. Well, John is a detective. He goes to this hotel room with his partner, Andy. He sees a couple laying on the bed. Hands are nailed to the headboard. And the guy is sitting there. The guy is still alive. He's got his eyes gouged out and his tongue is cut out. And you see around the bed are pictures of each one's family. Both of them were both of them were having an affair with their significant others. Everybody in the pictures, though, their eyes are all blacked out. John mentions, he says, families, they were blind to what was going on. Underneath the bed, John sees a little bottle of Gorilla Glue. The guy he'd been making noises. He can't talk anymore. People are trying to figure out what he's saying. And John says, he's saying, get her out of me, or get her off of me, or something like that. Whoever killed him super glued his boner inside of her. This is getting wild already. Then it cuts to John. He's back at his office, digging up past files on another murder that took place. Oscar blogger that was writing stories about movies. I don't know. Sorry, I'm gonna get graphic. He was violated through the rear end. It said in the report it left behind gold paint chips. Just keep that in mind. I'm not just bringing that up for no reason. His daughter Scarlett, oh, where are you at? Scarlett calls and they start reading a bedtime story together while he's at work. She is at home with her mother, Alex. Chloe's 70, yeah! He gets another phone call when he's on the way out. It's a disguised voice. I know about that Spear murder that you're investigating. He tells John, go to the Hotel Cortez and go to room 64. So now we're gonna go to another story real quick. There's a junkie. His name is Gabriel. He's looking for a room so he can go shoot up in. And Iris gives him the key to room 64. And there's a character that's watching him, Sally. She is a drug addict and she lives at the hotel. And I'll get into her story a little bit more as we go on. He's already shooting up heroin. You see a flash image, something called the addiction demon. It is like a flesh-colored, mummified thing. And he has got a dildo. It's like a drill bit. And anyway, he begins to R-word the guy that has been shooting up heroin face down in the mattress. And then Sally shows up next to him. Now, Sally has got some serious attachment issues. Feels like everybody's going to leave her. And she needs to hear people say that they love her. They're never going to leave. And she's just saying like, he'll stop if you tell me you love me. He says, I love you, Sally. And then the addiction demon goes away. It cuts to John. Remember John? And he starts talking to another top 3 favorite character of mine, Liz Taylor. Yup. Transgender woman, male to female. And he tells her, I need to go to room 64. And he starts investigating, looking around. He looks around, finds nothing. So then he falls asleep. Sure, lays down on the bed. And then it pans to Gabriel, the one that has just been anally penetrated by the addiction demon, is laying underneath the bed. He wakes up at 2:25 a.m. and he sees a little boy, his son, Holden, one of the blonde children. Back in 2010, Holden was kidnapped. He sees Holden standing in front of him and he's like, And so he starts chasing him down the hallway, and Holden disappeared. He's just assuming, like, God, maybe I was just having a dream. He goes back home, and Alex is trying to rush out the door because she's like, I'm already late to go see some of my patients. Where the hell were you? Alex and John, their relationship is not great. They're doing the best they can. Alex leaves and goes to work. John and Scarlett go out to eat dinner. She starts talking about how when she dreams, she sees Holden, but she can't remember his voice anymore because she was so young when everything happened. We got another character to put up here, Donovan, or Donnie. And this is Iris's son. He is in love and involved with Lady Gaga, the Countess. I'm gonna call her Countess, but her real name is actually Elizabeth. Her and Donovan go out a cinema park of the film Nosferatu. Can you tell? We're gonna be talking about vampires, baby. Ryan Murphy, I think he said something about he never wanted the word vampire to be said at all. They're never referred to as vampires, but they're vampires. While they're there, they're actually kind of scoping out for people to munch on. They find a young couple. Countess, she stays up in the penthouse, right? She lives the high life, and she is also the owner of the hotel. Well, current owner of the hotel. They bring that young couple back up to the penthouse, start fooling around, and then they attack, and they both drink the other couple's blood, and they kill them. Iris has the Swedish girls locked up in an Iron Maiden. She tells them, I saw all the drugs and in your suitcase. So she says, we need to cleanse you. We need to clean out your whole system, give you this nasty looking protein shake. She's implying that the Countess is gonna drink their blood. Then Sally comes in. He's like, why are you torturing them like this? So then you find out Iris and Sally. Iris does not like Sally because Donovan, he was a junkie too, and he met up with Sally somewhere, and Sally was like, I know the perfect place to go shoot up. This happened in 1994. Donnie and Sally go to the hotel. Iris, she knows that he's been a junkie and she wants to help him. Well, Donnie does not like his mom. I'm still your mother and I still love you. I need to know what's going on with you at all times. Donnie wants to get away. That's kind of why he turned to drugs too. Sally gives Donnie, I don't know what the she gave him, but he overdoses. Iris runs into the room where they're at, sees that he's not responsive, panicking and thinks that he's already dead. Sally leaves the room. She goes up to the window and is looking out. Well, Iris comes up behind her, yeet, pushes her out the window, cracks her head on the pavement, and dies. So she is actually a ghost in the hotel. Iris comes back into the room and then she sees the Countess. And the Countess is laying there and she's like, your boy has got a jawline for days. The Countess actually turned Donnie. And also why Iris has stayed at the hotel because she wants to be closer to Donnie. Now Donnie is still like, Iris says, I need to go feed that thing in room 33. I'll talk about that later on. Sally says, all right, well, I'll take it from here. Lets Valinda out of the cage. She starts running through the hotel. Well, then she runs into the Countess and the Countess goes, slits her throat. She dies. Oh, I meant to put this up. I wrote it out for a reason. John and Scarlett are having their dinner, right? He gets a text message from Alex. I need you to come to this address. And he thinks she's with a patient because she makes house calls, right? He leaves Scarlett out in the car. Scarlett gets away from the police. She goes and she finds two guys hanging up from two different bedposts with their guts cut. She starts screaming. So John runs in there like, what happened? So you find out it was two twin boys killed their own parents. They were trying to get their inheritance. And so then someone else killed them because of it. You guys, are you ready? She is the woman. And she's back again. Guys, give it up. Marcy! This is a Marcy Stan channel, okay? You go right up here, Marcy. Have another crossover happening. It's happening. If you're not clued in, Marcy is a realtor. You should know this by now, people. Here, and she is giving a tour to a man called Will Drake. Will Drake is a fashion designer, so he is on the look for a new place to put his fashion workshop. Will's got his son Lachlan with him, and Marcy's like, I had to put my dog down. It's a callback. Hallie, the dog. Marcy got the dog when the Harmon family kicked the bucket. But she goes in, she shows the hotel to Lachlan and Will. They go up to the penthouse. The Countess and Donovan are up there. And the Countess tells Will, like, oh my God, I love your fashion. Tells Donovan, hey, go take Will to take a look at some of the art pieces we have around the hotel. They leave, and the Countess is left with Lachlan. She takes him to this secret room. It's all white, and it's got video games and candy everywhere. The little blonde children, that's where they stay. That's like their playhouse. She's like, you can come in here anytime you want if you want to hang out in here, really buttering him up. You find out that Alex did not send the text message at all. It was that one person that sent the phone call. Still, she was kind of ticked off at John to be like, why did you bring Scarlett to that murder? So anyway, she's like, I think we should probably just spend some time apart. It might be for the better. John is packing for an extended stay at the Hotel Cortez, and it's playing, oh my God, playing Hotel California. It works so well. But they were like, oh, we have nailed it. Iris gives him room 64. Sally has found Gabriel. She starts sewing him into the mattress. He's still alive. And Gabriel is like, you lied to me, putting me into the f***ing mattress. And she's like, yeah, well. Sally starts hearing some crying in the air duct, goes and sees that it's Agnetha. The blonde children are turned by the Countess, and so they're drinking Agnetha's blood, and Iris is in there, and Iris is like, well, she's tapped. She's dead. Both of them are dead. Liz takes Agnetha's body and takes her to the body chute. Well, Valinda's already been down there, and also the man from the mattress. So Alex, she is visiting one of her patients. His name is Max. He's very sick, and his mom is like an anti-vaxxer.
I don't know what the they're pumping into us. I don't want to have any of that in my blood.
Joke's on her, because now he's got measles, and it's getting worse. She tells the mom, he's most likely going to die. Right now, there's not much we can do except try and keep his fever down, but so great job. So that's all going on. John, he's asleep, and he wakes up, he sees Holden. He's chasing him down through the whole hotel, and he ends up at the bar with Sally and Liz. He says, I'll have a ginger ale, I don't drink. She asked John to tell her what his last drink was like. He was investigating a murder. They see the dad is dead with a gunshot wound, took his own life, and they go and see the rest of his family, his kids, his wife, everybody is dead in their beds. Before they investigate though, none of the victims in their beds had any gunshot wounds, no strangulation, no nothing. It was in the middle of the winter. But also, like, LA, I mean, to my knowledge, I don't think LA gets that cold. They found a generator inside. The man had left it running to keep the house warm for his family while he went to work. The carbon monoxide poisoning killed all of his family. The man came home from work and he was devastated and he took his own life. John was like, that was too much. He says he went out on a bender just to relieve some stress. That weekend, he went back home. So he says, how about this weekend? I saw a fair happening down at the Santa Monica Pier. Why don't we all go have a nice weekend? Well, then they go. And that is where Holden is kidnapped. John was supposed to be watching him. This happened in 2010. Hang on. Oh, poop. John tells Sally that the reason he doesn't drink anymore is because he can't afford to get lost. He needs to be clear, level-headed, no more drinking. So John is back at work and he gets a package delivered. And at first he thinks it's a bomb. Right off the bat, he's like, so he sends everybody into a panic. They open it up. It's a bloody Oscar Academy Award statue used in another murder. Somebody else knew that. It was in their file. Like, the general public wouldn't know that. It was sent to him by that anonymous person. Called him the one time, texted saying that they were Alex. Now they sent him a bloody Oscar. We're having a fashion show, people. And there's a character, Naomi Campbell, everybody. She is playing a character called Claudia, and she's also a friend of Will. She comes to the hotel because he's gonna put on this fashion show. Scarlett is there with her dad. But John is like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a fashion show happening. We're gonna leave. Will is like, no, you can stay here. Scarlett can hang out with my son and they can watch the show and you could sit here with Claudia. When the fashion show is happening, Lachlan tells Scarlett, hey, why don't we dip? We can go somewhere else. I found this really cool place in the hotel. We should go see. So they run to the pool. It's a drained pool. There's like 4 glass coffins in the bottom of the pool. Scarlett sees Holden. Lachlan says they won't wake up even if you tap on the glass. He taps on the glass. Holden just goes. That scares Scarlett a little bit, but we'll come back. Claudia tells John about a model who's going to be walking in the show and that he has a reputation of being a bad boy. Oh my God. It's Finn Wittrock playing Tristan Duffy. Really pissy and angry and moody and strung out on drugs most of the time. But you know what? The bone I have to pick with, Mr. Finn Wittrock did not get a credit to opening credit scene. He's not even in there. I'm sorry. I was pissed because I'm a Finn Wittrock whore. Okay? When the show starts, you see guest starring Finn Wittrock. Guest starring? This man has got a solid role on this show. And they're like, hey, it's your time to go walk. He does a line of coke and he goes out there. He grabs someone's champagne glass from the crowd. He starts kissing girls, punching dudes in the face. And then when he's coming back around, he locks eyes with the Countess. So he just becomes infatuated with her because he caused quite a ruckus out there on the runway. Will goes backstage to meet with him and he's like, what the f are you doing? And he's like, I'm done modeling. I don't want to do this anymore. Tristan goes around and he ends up in the penthouse where he freaked it. And he said, I know there's coke up here. I can smell it. Donnie catches him and he's trying to stop him, but the Count comes in there and she's like, no, he's fine. Well, we follow Tristan. He's still looking for that cocaine. He ends up on the 7th floor in room 64. And that is where he meets Evan Peters. This is his season. It's one of his best characters he's played. This is James Patrick March. He calls for Miss Evers to come in and bring in a prostitute that's tied up and bound. And Tristan says, I'm not really into bondage. It kind of bores me. James brings out a gun. Take the gun and kill her. It's a thrill. Tristan is like, like, no. Then James ends up killing her and scares Tristan, and he runs down the hall and runs into the Count. I wonder if they called her the Countess, because like, in my notes I just kept writing Count, and I was like, oh, I wonder if it's like the Count, you know, vampire. This is another day. Hang on, new day. Celine Dion, a new day has come. Scarlett goes back to the hotel without her father knowing, because she's like, I know I saw Holden in there and I gotta go get proof. She goes to the pool. The glass coffins are empty, and then she finds the game room. She goes in there and it's just Holden sitting there, and she's like, do you remember me? And he says, yeah, you're my sister. She says, well, can we take a picture together? She goes to take a selfie, and when she does, Holden goes to try and bite her. Like at the last second, he goes like, ah. So she freaks out. She's like, She goes home. She tells John and Alex, she's like, Holden's still alive and I just saw him. Well, in the picture, you do see a little blonde boy because he jumped and moved to bite her. It's blurry. At this point, the Countess has actually changed Tristan. So that's when she goes into explaining the rules. They can die. You won't burst into flames if you walk out into the sun, but it should be avoided. To avoid dead or diseased blood. Most importantly, don't fall in love. That will come into play too, because the Countess has got some. She's very possessive. She was born in 1904. I'm not going to put it up here because I'll write it in my little notes up here. She says, I was turned by a beautiful man. Tristan was asking her what her favorite era was. She said she loved the 70s and the disco era. Everybody stayed out late at night in dark and sweaty places, so she could kind of hide under the cover of that. Donnie walks in on them and he's mad because Donnie is hurt. Like, she's like, you know what? I think you've overstayed your welcome. I think we're done. So she tells him, pack your shit. Get out. We went to one fashion show and you already want me out on the street. Okay, so John is coming back to the hotel. Says, I need to know some answers about this hotel. So Iris starts telling the story about how the hotel came to be. A Mr. James Patrick March. He was an East Coast socialite. I think I got it. I have such a hard time with that word. He comes over to LA in 1926. The hotel is a monument to his sadism. James... Okay, James. He believes he's kind of got like the dandy complex. I was put on this earth to bring death. When he is building the hotel, he sent in some blueprints to the city to get approved, but when it actually came time to build the hotel, he had a whole nother idea and was like, okay, no, this is what we're really going to use. And now all the architects that are working on the building are looking at it like, what are we doing? Because they start seeing like secret passageways. They were like, you want us to build a whole floor of rooms and hallways and then seal it and then also have body chutes and have secret doors and this, that, and the other. And so he's like, yes. Iris goes and she's telling John, like, the whole hotel set up like a trap because it's meant to trap victims inside, make it hard for them to get out if they can get out. At least 3 people a week were killed, like in the process of him trying to open up the hotel. What do you like to do? You like to kill. Sue them. You know, the police, they find field full of migrant workers. All of their teeth have been taken out of their head. They're all dead. Sorry. They also find a handkerchief and it has the initials JPM. So they go to the hotel. He tells Mrs. Evers, because she runs in there and she's like, they're here. They know you just killed a whole bunch of people. Miss Evers is a faithful servant to Mr. James March. She is whipped. He says, well, how would you like to die? Would you like to die by a gun or by a knife? Would you like to go first or second? And she says, well, actually, it would be an honor if I was your last kill. So I'll take the gun and I'll have you shoot me. That's what he does. He shoots her in the head. She dies. And then he takes a knife, slits his own throat. Which actually, her logic is flawed if you think about it. He would be his own last kill. If you couldn't pick up. He's a ghost. She's a ghost. John, he's back at work, starting to put 2 and 2 together. Migrant workers, the Oscar award that he got sent to. He asks his partner, Andy, if he has ever heard of James Patrick March. Well, I think all of these murders trying to finish up something that James has started. And that's where he concludes that there's something called the 10 Commandments Killer. This reminded me a lot of Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. That is one of top 3 favorite movies for me. But they kill in like the 7 deadly sins. It's kind of like that, where the murders that John is investigating all have to do with the 10 Commandments.
This is getting good.
Tristan goes back to room 64. He's calling out for James. I found a new appreciation for killing things and killing people. I love it. You're right. It is a high. It's great. Then he shows Tristan a black closet and he says, there's hidden places like this all over the hotel that I've designed to put in here, and I want them all reopened. Want to help me? By all means, come on. Well, then Will Drake and Claudia, Naomi Campbell, come into the hotel room and they only see Tristan sitting there. They're like, who are you talking to? And why are you still here? Will tells him that he's squatting and he needs to get out. He's trespassing. But then you hear Will talking to Claudia about how they're gonna gut the whole 7th floor and redo it for his fashion workshop. And they all leave the room. James and Miss Evers, they show up and they're like, where the hell are we gonna live? Tristan tells them, like, don't worry, I'll handle it. So he wants to go and get Will Drake. Max, do you remember that little boy that Alex is treating that has the measles? He's getting sicker and sicker. She ends up convincing his mom to take him to the hospital. While she's there, she starts going into her upbringing and her childhood. She did not have a great childhood at all. She was kind of weary about having kids. When she was pregnant with Holden, she gave birth. She was like, I felt a love like I've never felt before. I have never felt it with Scarlett or John, which is really After Holden was kidnapped, she attempted to take her own life. John found her, saved her. Cut to, they're sitting in family therapy. Alex is like, all right, just tell me from the beginning. What did you see? And so she says, I saw him in the glass coffin. I found him in the game room and he smelled like lavender. Now that was something Alex pointed out, that when Holden was born, he smelled like lavender. So anyway, when Scarlett says that, Alex is like, what? Okay, so Claudia, she's in her room when she goes to bed. Out of the mattress comes Gabriel, the one that Sally sewed up into the mattress. He jumps out and he strangles Claudia. He kills her with an ice pick. Okay, so we have another murder happening for John to investigate. A gossip column. It's kind of like TMZ. All of the journalists there are dead. Tongues are pulled out of their mouth and nailed to the desk. He goes back to the hotel. He sees Gabriel running around. Gets him to the hospital, to the ER. Before he... Yeah, well... Gabriel says he mentioned Sally, then he dies. John goes back to the hotel, and then Sally shows up, and she brings up the 10 Commandments killer. So he puts her under arrest. They go into the elevator, and then she sees a flash image of the addiction demon, and she gets scared, and she's like, what? John is down in the lobby. He's like, what the hell? Where'd she go? He's alone. Later on, Alex finds John at the bar at the hotel. I brought some divorce papers I would like for you to look over and sign. It's for the best. Probably better for you to actually move out. Maybe just stay here at the hotel. He apologizes for not being there, for Scarlett, for her, even after Holden. And so anyway, they start making out, getting caught up in the moment. She's like, whoa, wait a minute. Sorry. Didn't mean that. I'm bringing you divorce papers for you to sign. Divorce, babe. Divorce. She dips. Walking through the halls and she sees Holden. Tristan, he goes into the penthouse and Will is there looking at floor plans. Tries to start to seduce Will. He wants to help Mr. March out. Goes in to start making out with him, but really go in for the kill. And then he sees the Countess standing in the doorway and she goes, so he blue balls Will Drake. Like, why didn't you let me kill him? She tells him, I need him alive so I can marry him. I get the money, I get the hotel, and then we'll go ahead and... Tristan's like, oh, your big juicy brain. Donovan, remember, he got kicked out by the Countess. So now Iris tells him, been looking at places online to these apartments. These places look really nice. We both can move in there. And he tells her the whole thing, like, I've never loved you since you screwed up our family. You kicked our dad out, or our dad. You kicked my dad out. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I'm leaving and I'm going somewhere else. She starts having a little breakdown. I'm your mother. I don't know what my purpose is if I'm not looking after you. And Donovan says, well, if that's the case, you should just kill yourself. And he starts feeding on a bunch of homeless people. And then he sees someone having trouble with their car. Well, then Miss Thing turns around. Ramona Royale. Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett did the thing. Ramona turns around and she goes zzz, and tases Donovan in the throat. So now that Donovan broken and shattered his mother's heart, she's desperate and she goes to Sally and says, just fucking shoot me up with the best of the best. She wants to die. Sally's like, are you sure? I'm gonna keep jumping back and forth from their story, but Donovan is with Ramona Royale. She's hooked him up to some dialysis. He wakes up and he's like, what's going on? Who are you? Well, Ramona Royale, very successful actress back in the 70s. One of like the only black actresses. Remember I told you that the Count said that her favorite era was 70s? That is where she meets Ramona. Basically, the Count turns Ramona. They fall in love. They spend about maybe 20 years together. Ramona ends up falling in love with another person. He's a rapper. His name is Prophet Moses. Countess, she gets jealous. Ramona and Prophet Moses, they're in recording booth. They're having a moment. Blah, blah, blah. They come out. Countess has killed everyone in the studio. Then she kills Prophet Moses. Anyway, long story long, Ramona wants revenge after all this time, and she's gonna use Donnie. We're gonna go after these towhead children. We're gonna kill them all. Then it cuts to Sally. Iris is in the bed. She is knocked out a little bit, but she just won't die. And Sally is like, I gave you enough drugs to kill a marching band. What is going on? He resorts to putting a bag over Iris's head to try and suffocate her that way. And she goes and sits on the chair waiting for her to die. Well, Donovan runs in and he's like, no, don't kill her. Ends up cutting his wrists and pouring blood into Iris's mouth. So now she is turned. Okay, y'all, here we go. Devil's Night. So it opens up with Richard Ramirez. Do you know who that is? He looks like, well, he kind of looks like this. Richard Ramirez is also known as the Night Stalker. He was a serial killer. I don't know all the stats off the top of my head. He died in 2013 though. He has an invitation to Devil's Night from one James Patrick March. He's checking in and he says, unfortunately, Manson is not going to be here tonight because at the time, Charles Manson was still alive. You kind of start figuring out, like, are all the serial killers coming? They are. Oh, Christ. I'm gonna have to move this. John, he looks up onto the ceiling and he notices a blood spot. He's upstairs and he sees Miss Evers in one of the rooms scrubbing, trying to get this blood stain. And she says this happens at least once a year. And then she gets into talking about her son back in 1925. It shows them going trick-or-treating. He's dressed up as a ghost. So she and another mom are talking. She turns around and she's like, where is he? Her son was kidnapped. They found her son and a whole bunch of other children in a ranch outside of LA. Some of the kids were saved and some of them were not because the killer had been doing it for quite a while. Unfortunately, her son Albert was not one of the kids that lived. Her and John end up having a bond because they both had their kids stolen. A switch flips and she's like, I have to go. I have to clean. He's like, there's too much to do right now. It's Devil's Night. I have to get going. John is back at his work and he's doing some research on those murders that Miss Evers was talking about. And he tells his partner the place that she was saying it's not even here. John's partner Andy says, no, it happened, but they changed the name of the town after the murder. Looks up the real name of the town and realizes that the murders happened 85 years ago. So Alex, because she found Holden, she took Holden home with her. He sees the dog. The dog won't stop barking at him. Alex is like, let me just go put him in the bathroom and get him out of the way. She opens up some curtains and he's like, it's too bright. Well, let me take your temperature and make sure you're okay. 75 degrees. Are you hungry? He says, no, I'm thirsty. So she says, okay, let me go get you some juice. When she comes back, Holden got the dog and started drinking the dog's blood and killed the dog. And then he says, I don't feel good. I want my other mommy. Alex ends up bringing Holden back to the hotel and he gets into his coffin and the Countess is back behind Alex. I need some questions answered quick. Go up to the penthouse. She saves children who are being neglected by their parents. And Alex is like, what the f are you talking about? We did not neglect him. The Countess says, well, John did at the pier. He put him on a carousel ride. And John steps back and he takes a phone call while Holden is riding the carousel. When he looks to find Holden again, Holden is gone. And you see the Countess taking Holden and walking across the beach. She tells her that Holden is infected by the virus. Alex pulls out a gun, threatening the Countess. She's holding her at gunpoint. I want a cure. Isn't that a Lady Gaga song? How does it go? I'll fix you with my love. I can make you the same as Holden and give you the virus. You stay here forever. Alex is like, you're fucking crazy. Yeah, she leaves, but then she comes back and she ends up drinking the Countess's blood. Takes her up on the deal. And she's like, yeah, fine, I'll do it. Now, Alex has been changed. All right, guys, let's get into Devil's Night officially. I've had it officially. John goes to the bar. He admits, I've never been an alcoholic. I'm just a control freak. So he orders a martini. Well, then someone else sits next to him. Miss Eileen, Miss Warnos, you may know her. She's here for her 13th Devil's Night. John buys her a drink. So Liz tells Eileen, hey, you know, John is a cop. And so she goes into like her justification for why she killed all those men. He tells her, it's a good costume. It's a good performance you're putting on. He doesn't believe that she's really Eileen. So then she says, you ain't lived till you rolled around with a good hooker like me. They go upstairs to his room. They start fooling around. Well, John puts her in handcuffs and is like, I'm going to figure out who you are. Her wallet and sees her ID and it says Eileen Warnos. He runs down to the front desk to Liz and Liz is like, it looks like you've been invited to Devil's Night. So then he goes back to his room. Eileen's gone and on his bed is a tux laid out and it has a note and it says, knock 'em dead by Liz. Going up to room 78 and Eileen is up there. She apologizes for how she acted and she's like, I want you to sit next to me at Devil's Night for the dinner. James March, he comes out and he's like, nope, we've got assigned seats. And he also introduces his guest Eileen, Richard Ramirez, John Wayne Gacy, Pogo the Clown. I'm not going into their backstory. You can look it up yourself. The Zodiac Killer. Sorry, that's the best picture you're gonna get. They don't really show him very much. This is breaking the fourth wall for Ryan Murphy here. Jeffrey Dahmer. Now when you rewatch it, you look at Jeffrey Dahmer and you're like, Evan Peters is right there, but you're right here. March has offered John some absinthe. If you don't know what absinthe is, this green alcohol, it's so fucking strong, and it starts to make John hallucinate. Jeffrey Dahmer's been sitting over in the corner, kind of quiet. Well, Miss Evers brings in a man, for Jeffrey. Then that really livens up the party. Dahmer says, I just wanted to control them, so he would drill holes into their skulls and he would pour acid into their head. That's what he's doing to this young man that's joined the party. And John is like, so he pulls out his gun, starts shooting, misses, and then they tie up John to the chair. And then it cuts to Sally. Sally is out on the street. She picks up this one guy. They go upstairs to Devil's Night. Oh God, I'm out of breath. And she says, this is going to get me 1 year of you leaving me the f*** alone, right? The guy that she wrangled in off the street. All of Devil's Night attendees go in for the kill. And then Sally ends up untying John. And she tells him, like, don't worry, you're just hallucinating. This isn't really happening. Back to Alex's story. You know, she's changed, right? LA has changed you. Well, she's back at the hospital. They keep all the blood samples and the blood bags and stuff. And she starts having a cocktail of everybody's blood. She's also there because Max, the one that had the measles, Alex takes some of her blood that she has drawn, puts it into his IV bag. And immediately he starts having a fucking seizure. She leaves. Max walks in and he's like, I feel great. Later on, Max has come back home. You see his dad laying on the floor, his mom laying on the floor, both of them completely dead. Max has fed on both of his parents, and then he goes to school. While at school, one of his friends, they've got a quest on each other. They go into the closet. They have a little moment. They kiss. But while they kiss, she's like, ow, did you bite me? He bites his own lip, and he's like, look, now we're even. And then they share blood. So now Madeline has turned. The teacher comes to go look for him. They end up killing the teacher and drinking the teacher's blood. The principal comes by and one of the kids falls out of the classroom and he's like, Jimmy, what are you doing? Are you okay? All the kids, they've all been changed. They attack their principal. The principal goes up to the staff in the teacher's lounge and he slams his hands on the glass. They call the police. They get the kids out. The kids are giving statements. They've come up with a narrative saying it was a killer. We don't know what happened to the killer. The killer's gone. Ramona and Donovan, they say that Iris should be their mole because the Countess doesn't really pay much mind to Iris. Liz sees her and she's like doubled over in pain, and Liz is like, what happened to you? Figures out like, oh my God, you've been changed. So they go to the bar. She gets out the Countess's stash of blood. This will hold you over for a little bit, but you're gonna have to go out and start killing. Some hipsters come to the hotel. Darren Criss. His role, Andrew Cunanan in American Crime Story, highly recommend. Social media influencers, but they're assholes, okay? They're so rude, and they call downstairs and they're ordering room service. Just give us a decent plate of pate. Iris starts having a little bit of a breakdown. She's like, I don't deserve to be treated like this. Liz tells her, let's just give them some cat food. Iris goes up to their room, gives them the cat food, but they're just harking on the service there and say it's horrible, blah, 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 blah. Well, Iris gets ticked off. She ends up killing both of them and drinking their blood, so she gets her fresh blood. Okay, so back up a little bit. When her and Liz are plating the cat food, Liz goes in to tell her story about how she became Liz Taylor because Iris was telling her, I'm not a homophobe. I don't care if you're gay. And Liz says, I'm not gay. I'm a woman. I like men. Real name was Nick Pryor, and in 1984, y'all, you can keep up. I'll write the dates another time. She married her wife because they were the same dress size. They had a child named Douglas, was a pharmaceutical rep. She would go on business trips. One time she went to the Hotel Cortez with some colleagues. Like, we're gonna go out to the strip clubs. You wanna go? And she says, no, I think I'm gonna turn in. I'm all right. While she's in her room, her own privacy, she likes to cross-dress, but she never goes out. It's just for her. Well, then the Countess catches her in the act. She says, you look like a man, but you smell like a woman. Gets her all dolled up. She says, you are going to be named Liz Taylor. The Countess is like, why don't we go out, a club somewhere? And Liz is like, So she says, okay, let's take some baby steps and go and get some ice down the hall. And her co-workers that are with her on this business trip show up around the hallway and they're like, what the are you doing? They start accusing her of having AIDS because gay. Co-workers turn around and the Countess is there. Slits their throats. They die. Liz ends up staying at the hotel. I sent money every month for my son, but I was out of there. The Countess makes Alex the governess. Remember that? Alex is afraid that John is going to see her wandering around the hotel. She says, well, you can stay in Holden's coffin. Come back over here with me. 1926. We have another crossover, people. The show opens up with the Countess going to Murder House, and she's going to see Dr. Montgomery. Dr. Montgomery would give abortions out of his house, so that's what she's going for. She's pregnant. Tells Dr. Montgomery that she's only 3 weeks pregnant. He's like, I don't know if that really adds up. He had to cut the baby out of her belly. The baby is alive, and it ends up attacking the nurse. I'll put that right there. He ends up waking up, having the baby, and she's like, all right, I guess I'll keep it. She names him Bartholomew. Sorry if I flubbed that. Will and the Countess are fooling around. And because Will is gay, he can't get hard. She's like, don't worry, I'll call Tristan up here. Well, Tristan and Liz have started a fling. I loved this ship. Tristan is like, I'm not gay. And again, Liz is like, I'm not gay. You're not gay for being with me because I am a woman. Anyway, they're just falling for each other. But then the Countess calls Tristan up to help with Will. Tristan has to leave Liz, but they say, we need to tell her. And like I said, the Countess, she is very, very jealous. So John, he's asleep and he's woken up by Holden. Once again, they go to the pool and he sees Alex in there with Holden in the glass coffin. And he's like, what the f***? He passes out just from the sheer shock of it all. He wakes up to Alex. I found you unconscious right outside your door. And she's gaslighting the hell out of him. She gaslights him when he questions about the coffins. That when they go to the pool, all the glass coffins are gone. So Alex and Liz moved all of the glass coffins in case he comes looking for him. It looks like he's losing his mind. The Countess, Will, and Lachlan are going on a trip to Paris. But before they go, the Countess goes to say goodbye to her son, Bartholomew, who is in room 33. Do you remember when Iris had said something like, I need to go feed that thing in room 33? Telling him goodbye. I'll just go ahead and show you a picture of Bartholomew. He looks like that. Yeah, a face only a mother could love. Ramona and Donnie have come back to the hotel, and Ramona knows that the Countess has got Bartholomew locked up in room 33, running around the room trying to get away from her, and he throws a ball and distracts her, and then he gets out of the room, and Liz finds out. Liz tells Alex, like, there will be hell to pay if we don't find him. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. Donovan goes up to the penthouse and starts smelling some panties. The Swedes show up. We've been stuck here for, at this point, probably like a month. You gotta find your purpose. Worth your while staying here. Otherwise, you are just going to be in this perpetual limbo state. I said, well, what's your purpose? And he said, I lost my purpose when I lost the Countess. And Alex, she ends up running into the Swedish girls. They've killed another man. Like, you don't need to kill people to find your purpose. And she let them know that there's a man here, John, that wants to be with 2 women. She says, just make him think that he's crazy. She's teaching him how to gaslight. You've got yet another murder happening that John's going to investigate to a church. There's a security guard that has been killed, and there's also the pastor of the church at the podium. His guts and his spleen, everything is like sprawled out. He has coins shoved down his throat. He's a televangelist, so he's like a Joel Osteen. He's giving services through television and trying to make money. His captain, he tells John, you're fired, at least a leave of absence. Like, this is not good for your mental health. And they say that they've already got a suspect in custody for these murders. So then he ends up going back to the hotel. Well, the Swedish girls end up intercept him, and then they start having a threesome. But he's covered in blood and he runs away. And Liz is like, you look like you're having a fun night. So then they go back up to his room. Miss Evers is in there scrubbing up the mess again. He tells them all to leave. So he starts packing up his shit, and he notices he's got all the blood on him. So he's like, well, let me take a shower. Well, then you get a point of view, a little Bartholomew, and he ends up getting in John's luggage in his suitcase. Leaves the hotel. He goes to pick up Scarlett. Anyway, they go back home. Scarlett's crying, and so John is consoling her, and she looks at his shirt, and she's like, is that blood on your shirt? So he goes and he changes. When he goes in his room, he sees that his bag has been opened. Bartholomew has gotten out. So he gets his gun, and he finds him in the kitchen, and he starts shooting, and it scares Scarlett, and she's like, you need to stay away from me. They call the police. Alex comes to the house. She says, you probably just need to have a good night's sleep in your own bed. And that kind of lets John know that she's been staying at the Cortez, because remember, he saw her in the coffin. You bitch. You've been lying to me the whole time. When she's leaving, she hears a rustling in the bushes. She looks and she sees Bartholomew. He's safe. It's like, oh, thank God. Will, the Countess, and Lachlan, they've come back from Paris. She goes and she sees Liz. Liz tells her she's in love with Tristan. Countess is like, no. Can I just have this one? You have so many. We'll discuss it. So they go down to one of the rooms. Tristan shows up. They profess their love to one another. She says, you really love each other? Yeah, we do. She says, fine, you can have him. And she slits his throat, kills Tristan. No! Will is talking to his son Lachlan. I plan on being with the Countess for forever. And then the foreman doing renovations on the hotel, he comes up to him and he's like, we found something. And we don't know what it is. It says it's like an inch thick steel wall. So they say, all right, well, cut it out. The two guys working go into this hallway, this abandoned hallway. Just, it smells like death in here. Well, then two ghoulish people come out. They kill them and they drink their blood. Hold up. We have Natasha. You see that? And then you have Rudy Valentino. Yes, Finn Wittrock, because he's playing two characters in this season. He still gets guest starring Finn Wittrock. Thank you, Ryan Murphy. Rudy and Natasha, they're freed, so they leave the hallway. Later on, Iris and the Countess go up to the hallway. Iris says, "This is the first time I've ever seen you look scared." Okay, this hurt my heart so much. So with Rudy and Natasha out on the prowl, find Miss Marcy in her room. And then they killed her. They kill her and they drink her blood. But Marcy is a ghost of the hotel now. And they start talking about they need to get fresh blood. They also need to get out of the hotel. They hear some guys across the hallway. 3 Aussies. Aussie. And they go over there. They drink their blood. Basically almost like rejuvenated. Leaving and going to a motel somewhere. So John, I'm going to go to a hospital and be evaluated. It's all a plan. They told him that they had a suspect in custody. He found out that his partner has been visiting the mental facility. He goes to the criminally insane part of the hospital, knocks out the guard, looks at the sign-in book, sees his partner's name, and he sees the room number that he's visited, and sees a young girl, one of the blonde kids. She says her name is Ren. Do you know anything about the 10 Commandments killer? Do you know who it is? And she says, yep. At the church where they had the televangelist, she said, I was the one that slit the security guard's throat. And she also pointed out details to John that nobody, and especially this little girl, she would have known these fine little details. He says, 10 Commandments killer, is that your father? She says, no, my dad died in 1986. Her father went to go drink at the Hotel Cortez and left her locked in a hot car. Well, the Countess came out and smashed the window, kept her at the hotel, and changed her. So then Ren tells John, she's like, if you can get me out of here, I'll tell you who the killer is. So he does that. They go back to the hotel and he's like, what the where are you taking me? Do you plan on killing the 10 Commandments killer when you find out who it is? And he says, yeah, I do. And she's like, well, I'm sorry to see it end. And then she runs into the street, gets hit by a bus, and dies. All right, so let's go back. So back in 1925, there was a silent film star, Rudolph Valentino. He's working on a movie. The Countess is a background actor, the son of the Sheik, I think is what it's called. She's talking with another actor about Rudy and like, oh my gosh, did you hear that he's getting a divorce from his wife, Natasha? One of the ADs on the set gives Countess a note, and it's from Rudy saying, come meet me at my house tonight for dinner. I would pee myself. So she goes to his house. They start having dinner. Natasha comes downstairs. The Countess is like, well, I thought y'all were getting a divorce. And they said, well, the divorce is just for show so that we can really be together. And then they want her to join in their relationship and have like a threesome relationship. The night that the hotel is opening up, she and the actress that was on set with her, they go to the hotel for the opening night. And while they're there, runs in and says, oh my God, Rudy died. She runs down to the hallway to the window and she's gonna jump. Well, who comes up behind her? James Patrick March gets her in a bear hug and pulls her back. And he says, I may never let you go. Fans are visiting Rudy's grave, his memorial in the mausoleum, and they start talking about a lady in black. They say that once a day she comes to visit and brings a rose. And so then they turn and they see the lady in black, the Countess. Let's give her privacy. Who comes up behind her? Rudy! Natasha and Rudy both show up and she's like, what the what the hell is wrong with you two? They start questioning the Countess. They're like, why did you get married to James March? Yeah, she ended up getting married to James March. I panicked. Like, I didn't know what else to do. You guys left me. So then Rudy goes into telling what happened. He was on the press tour for Son of the Sheik. He kept seeing this one guy watching him. He found out that it was actually the director, F.W. Murnau. I don't actually know if that's the real guy that directed this movie, but he was the director of Nosferatu, following Rudy to tell him that the death of silent film is coming. I can help you if you want to stay like this for forever. He offered to change him if he could fake his own death, so he did. And then Rudy ended up changing Natasha. So then all three of them are back together again. They had made plans to actually run away together. James is there watching all of this. He was the one that sealed them up in the hallway. They had train tickets to leave, and it shows her waiting there at the train station for them, and it's like they just ghosted her. Miss Evers and Mr. March, they're preparing a dinner. March has made a deal with the Countess, once a month, she must have dinner with him. She tells him, I'm planning on marrying Will. And he's like, oh, great. Well, when you kill him, do it off the property, because it would be really awkward if I had to keep running into him every day. They start talking about love and blah, blah, blah. Like, I locked away your only lover. And she's like, huh? So then she finds out that they were the ones that were locked up in that hallway. Goes back in there and she sees the train tickets that they had, and she has a full breakdown. So back to John's story. He remembers seeing Rin in one of the coffins. So then he goes to Liz at the hotel and he's like, answer my questions. I am so confused. Sally is there. I'll take you to get some answers. They go up to room 64. That's been John's room for what, 2 months at this point. Sally is letting him know, well, you know, this was James's office. He died in here February 25th at 2:25 a.m. There's a hidden door behind the dresser. Goes in there and it's a trophy room. Past kills, and they're all neatly placed in these jars. It's very graphic too, if you don't want to watch, sorry. The Hand of a Thief, 1926. That was the first one. There was a guy, he got his hand cut off. The migrant workers, their teeth are lined up. Martin Gamboa's Bashed in Brains. That's where John got the Oscar award sent to him with blood all over it. So then John is like, well, why is there like a 90-year lull? James was waiting for a successor to come along and finish up what he started. The adulterer that John was investigating, his eyes and his tongue are in display. 2 twin hearts, 2 twin boys that killed their own parents. The tablet from like the TMZ people, their vocal cords are on display. The spleen of the televangelist that had the coin shoved down his throat has a breaking point. And he realizes John is the 10 Commandments killer. Okay, so now we're going to break it down of like what was actually happening and how he could be the killer. He goes to the morgue where Rin is laying out. His partner shows up and John is telling him, I'm the killer. So he goes to the hotel for the first time back in 2010, has some drinks. Sally at one end of the bar and she's about to go talk to him, but then Donnie kind of intercepts and starts talking to him, invites John to go. He goes up to the room where James and the Count are having their monthly dinner. James is like, what the why are you interrupting us? James ends up becoming infatuated with John and all of his homicides and insight to murder. They drank for 2 days, and when John finally passed out, the Countess came in. James said, I want to make him my protege. And that's when she stole Holden. That got the ball rolling, because then he started spiraling. About afterwards, when Holden was kidnapped, frequent visits to the hotel that he had blocked out, meetings with March and having sex with Sally. That's why she's kind of very attached to John. I mean, also she's attached to everybody that'll give her 2 seconds. James March, he shows him the trophy room. I think the pain that you have right now is from a lack of justice in this world, and you can help me bring back justice if you help me continue with these murders. So then this is where you find out Martin Gamboa had checked in with a young boy. You can kind of figure out the rest. They took pictures together. James gives John one of the pictures that he has. Martin Gamboa, he was selling the Academy Award online to make a couple $1,000. John is going to pick up the award, right? And then he ends up giving him the picture of that little boy. And Martin's like, no, never mind, get out. I don't want to talk about this. John takes the Oscar and bashes him on the back of the head and beats the holy hell out of him and takes back his brain. He ends up making himself lead investigator of all these murders. That is so genius, yes. Sally tells him that the hotel ends up suppressing the memories, so he made himself lead investigator without the knowledge that he was the 10 Commandments killer. Also, John figures out his partner Andy, Alex, have been having an affair with one another. I wrote it down because this was confusing to me. Sally told John that he couldn't link himself to the killings by killing his wife, because that would just get too messy. Kills his partner, and then in his last breath, the partner's like, you didn't deserve Alex. Confirming he ended up bringing home the testicles and the peen of his partner into the trophy case, not to covet with thy neighbor's wife. Bill and the Countess are having a discussion about the wedding. I want it small, intimate, just you, me, your son. Well, then she turns and she looks at Liz and she's like, Liz, will you help out with the flowers? Liz is like, you bitch. She's offended that she would even ask her for anything after killing Tristan. Private investigator has gotten in touch with the Countess saying that he has found her boy, Rudy, at some nasty motel. And so she goes out there to see him, and Natasha's there too, but who cares? Donnie's gone back and they start having a relationship again. And she's like, I just have to get married to Will. I'll be married on Wednesday and I'll be a widowed by Thursday. Will and his son Lachlan, they're getting ready for the wedding. And then Miss Evers appears. She's asking Will, like, what weapon are you going to use when you want to kill yourself? Because I'm sure whatever she chooses is going to be so much more painful. She's not going to kill me, first of all, but even if she did, she's not going to get any money from it. I've already signed a prenup. Whoa. Miss Evers explains supposed to marry James, but then the Countess came in and swooped in and took her man. Will has never seen James, so he's like, what do you mean she's married to somebody else? So he's just getting confused and frustrated, and he tells Miss Evers, he's like, just get out. I don't ever want to see you again. She's like, I'm going to really take a lot of pleasure in cleaning up the mess that your body expels when you die, when you reach out and ask for help. I'm going to be right there smiling and laughing at you. Damn, because the Countess has called for someone to come and seal up that hallway where Rudy and Natasha were. Countess has told the contractor to put an impenetrable security door over the wall, and you have 1 day to do it. The contractor is like, I can't do that. That's impossible. March appears behind him, and he's like, you're gonna make it possible. Ramona tells Donnie, coward, you went back to the Countess like at the drop of a hat. But he says, no, it's just a cover-up. During the wedding, that's when she's going to be distracted, so they need to go ahead and make the move to kill all the kids. She's already talked about why she wants revenge, killing her lover. She tells more of her backstory. So in 92, after she left the Countess, her mother was sick and her father was having the early stages of Alzheimer's. Her mom ended up dying. The dad got worse. So then one night, her dad had some burglars come in and they beat the holy hell out of him. She ends up giving him some of her blood. She thought that it would help the Alzheimer's, it would reverse it and make him better, but it didn't. It just stunted him like where he was at. So it didn't do much of anything. It was giving him a bath, and she ended up pushing him under the water and drowning her own father. The birth of the internet and streaming services started to get kind of popular again because everybody was finding her movies. I found out what the Countess was taking from me, what I'd been missing out on all these years. That's another reason for her revenge. Oh gosh, how much more? Those kids from the classroom, it's also summer vacation, which I guess that puts in perspective how fast this season moves. They say that nobody's looking for them. Like, they don't need to be in school yet, so nobody's really out looking for the kids. They're making headlines because there's a bunch of murders. So Alex goes to Max's house. There's bodies laid out everywhere. All of them killed all of their family members at home. Came here and they've been hiding out at Max's house and bringing in people, and they all drink their blood. Some of the kids, they don't want to be involved with killing at all. And they're getting sicker and sicker. So Alex is like, you guys can come with me. Come back with me to the hotel and I'll keep y'all safe. Well, they're like, mm-mm. So Donnie, back to his story, he brings in Ramona. I drugged the Countess. She's sleeping. Go get her. The Countess just opens her eyes like, a surprise. Well, then Donnie takes a taser, tases Ramona on the neck, just like how she did to him. Oh, you two-timing whore. What the... Donnie takes Ramona an unsealed hallway where Rudy and Natasha were. He puts her in one of the Iron Maidens. We're going to put all of our enemies in here, and they've got cameras set up, and he's like, we're going to hate watch all you guys. Iris is also down there with him, and she's like, I can't believe you're falling in love with the Countess again. You even fooled me. The same thing is going to happen. She's going to move on again and again. Now that the Countess knows that Rudy is alive, she goes to visit Rudy at his motel. I just want to be with you. I don't even want to be with Natasha. So they have a plan. The Countess invites her back to the hotel. The Countess leaves. While she's leaving, Donnie is actually there spying on her because he's jelly. You know, they told him he's gonna go find someone else. Her and Will end up getting married. Yay. The Countess is like, well, let me go change into my travel clothes because they're gonna go on their honeymoon. Will goes to the bar and he ends up seeing James March. And they start talking about blended families. And Will's like, yeah, I know. She's really great with my son. And James is like, I'm not talking about your son. James takes Will to room 33 to see Bartholomew. He looks at him and he's like, what the f happened? He says something rude. Well, the Countess is standing behind him. She gets mad because she's like, that's my son, you bitch. She ends up knocking him out. And then he ends up waking up in front of Ramona's cage. Ramona and Will are locked in the hallway. That's why she needed that security door put in so quick, because she was like, I need to have somewhere to put him. He's like, oh my God, we're gonna fucking starve in here. Ramona's like, I'm not. And she ends up killing Will. Liz, she takes an older couple up to one of their rooms. She knows that the older couple has come to the hotel to end their life. She thinks it's so beautiful. She starts thinking about Tristan. She gets really depressed. Her and Iris start talking about having a suicide pact. Liz is like, I need to get in touch with my son. Make sure that he knows that I still love him. We'll get our affairs in order, and then when we're ready, we'll go do the deed ourselves. Miss Evers, she ends up getting in touch with Liz's son, Douglas, ends up booking him a stay at the hotel. Douglas comes to the hotel, and Liz, she doesn't say that she's his father. So anyway, they just have a conversation. Douglas has got a wife. He works for a storage company. I have dreams of moving out to Boulder and having another job. I don't know if I should. And Liz is like, you should go ahead and do it. Why not? And Douglas has mentioned, like, I'm actually here to meet my father. Offers to give him another drink, but he's like, nah, maybe next time. Liz, Iris ended up getting Miss Evers a washer dryer unit as a thank you. They're ready to go ahead and take care of business and go through with their pack. And when they're walking down the hallway, Miss Evers comes out and she tells Liz, your son's still sitting at the bar. And he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to move to Boulder and we're going to go start our new life over there. And then he says, all right, I know it's you, Dad, and I love you. Liz is like, are you sure you don't hate me being this way? And he's like, plenty of room for another woman in my life. Then Liz goes back to Iris, and Iris got a whole bedspread of weapons like guns, knives, rope, or pills. She's like, what do you want to do? And Liz tells her, I can't do it. He wants to have a relationship with me. Women like us, our age, we deserve a second chance at life. And who's to say we can't run this place? So they make a plan to start taking out some people. So John, he's on the killing spree of a lifetime, and now he's aware of it. Finds this, I guess it's kind of like a cult church service happening, but he kills the leader and 2 people that are attending the service, and he keeps their ears for listening to a false prophet. He ends up having a dinner with Alex. They talk about how they abandoned Scarlet, pretty much. Then Alex says, the Countess told Alex that she needs to get these kids in check that are going around killing because she's the one that turned one of them. And then John says he'll help her out. They go back to Max's house, and one last time they see one of the girls who didn't want to keep continuing to kill. She is dying. All the kids come out. They're begging for Alex to help her out. She does CPR, but she doesn't make it and she dies. They all end up following Alex and John back to the hotel. They put them in the hallway, the security door, with Ramona. And then Ramona comes out and she's like, appetizers. The children have been eaten. They've been drank. So you remember how Natasha was invited by the Countess for a girls' night out? And Donnie goes over to see Rudy at the motel. And both of them are having very similar conversations with the other person. Donnie shoots Rudy like 10 times in the face, kills him. The Countess kills Natasha. So they both died. Donnie comes in and he's like, I can't believe you watched Will be eaten without me. She's like, I'm sorry, but we'll get another one in there. We can watch them. Can you go in there and put Ramona back in her cage? And he says, I'll go clean up your mess and you can go clean up mine. She's like, what? Yeah, your boy, Rudy, gone. The motel that he's at and sees Rudy dead. His face is just gone and she's fuming, man. Alex and John, they've kind of rekindled their relationship. They have sex, like victory sex. Alex leaves. She's going to stay with Holden. Sally shows up and Sally is like, am I just a whore to you? She's just having a spiral moment because she's like, I've been here for you for 5 years. And then she brings out a knife and she's trying to kill him. The addiction demon shows up and flickers and it scares her and she's like, oh my god, I was just kidding. But then John, he ends up going to get Alex. He's like, let's just get out of here. They go get Holden from the game room. They leave the hotel. The Countess, she goes back to the penthouse and sees Donnie is still there and she's like, I'm surprised you didn't run away. And she brings up about how like she was looking for Rudy for so long, but he was in the hotel the entire time. Iris and Liz, they come in, guns blazing, both hands. They start firing shots at the Countess and Donnie. Well, they hit Donnie, and they do hit the Countess. Liz and Iris are taking Donnie downstairs outside because Donnie's like, I don't want to die in here. Get him out to the street, and then he dies. So he's not stuck in the hotel. Liz takes Donnie's body to the incinerator and brings the ashes back to Iris. She has a moment where she like spreads his ashes out on the bedspread. She runs into Miss Evers, and Miss Evers is like, did you have an accident? Iris is covered in the ashes. Just make sure you vacuum up every bit of him. I don't want him here anymore. Well, the Countess, she was shot, and she found her way to the body chute and fell down, and Sally finds her and is digging out the bullet. This is where you find out what happened with Sally and this addiction demon and why she's so afraid of it. Hanging out with some musicians. She says, they treated me like an actual friend and not just a drug dealer. They end up going to the hotel. They're shooting up heroin. They're having sex. She's like, I want to try something. She's like, I don't know what made me think of it and I don't know why I did it, but we did it. Ends up sewing her body in the middle of this woman and this man. They're sewed together. Well, then the 2 friends start having an overdose and they die. She's stuck together with them. And then she's coming down from her high. She starts freaking out. This addiction demon comes out of nowhere, begins torturing her. She said he showed up on the 3rd day, and by the 5th day, she had had enough, ripped the stitches out of her body. But that's why she is traumatized by this demon. The Countess, she's like, I need fresh blood. Sally brings those tow-headed children. I can't drink their blood, it'll kill them. And she says, well, Liz and Iris are in charge. They're gonna kill them anyway. So reluctantly, she drinks the blood from the children. Now, the Lowe family, they're back home. They got Scarlet, and Scarlet is like, let's be real. She's like, what are we gonna tell people? And how are they gonna feed? And John's like, don't worry, I'll get it. It cuts to John. He comes back home. Nobody is home. And he sees a hotel key to room 64. He sees Sally, and she says that March has taken his family and he'll give them back if and when he finishes these killings. To go back to Liz and Iris, and they let Ramona out. Look, we're taking over this hotel. You want in? And she's like, I just really want to kill the Countess. She's like, I'm feeling sick because she needs more blood. Someone checks into the hotel. Perfect timing. Queenie, the human voodoo doll from Coven. It's like, I'm here for a taping of The Price is Right. They bring her to her room, and already she's like, I don't fucking like it. This energy is off. Then Ramona comes out of the bathroom, starts trying to attack Queenie. Well, Queenie's like, bitch, I'm a voodoo doll. Well, then James comes up behind her. Her voodoo powers will not work on a ghost. So then he ends up hurting Queenie, and then Ramona goes and feeds off of Queenie, and Queenie dies. But now Ramona has got witch blood running through her veins. She goes up to the penthouse trying to kill the Countess, and she's trying to seduce her one more time and apologizes and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's not really clear what happens with Ramona, but then John shows up and kills the Countess and takes her head down to the trophy room. He's committed his last murder for this 10 Commandments killing. Thou shalt not commit murder. Although we could have chosen a lot of people for that. March, he's like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you, bestie. I can't believe you did it. And he wants him to keep continuing kill for him, but John's like, no, I want to go home, find my family, and leave. Oh my God, get this, bestie. Gag. Okay, James is up in his dining room area. The Countess's ghost shows up. James says, you know, I forgive you for calling the police on me and for having me to end my reign of terror. And she's like, it wasn't me. Miss Evers was the one that called the police. I knew you would take your own life and I would take mine too, and we would be together for forever. This little heifer came in and took you from me. It ruined the whole fucking thing. And he tells Mrs. Evers, like, you're banished from seeing me. I don't ever want to see you again. And she weirdly feels like, I feel free now. That's fine with me. So Liz and Iris, they've reinvented the hotel, put word out to the public that it's open up under new management. Couple of travel vloggers and bloggers or whatever, they're loving it. They're eating it up. And they're looking at the bathroom, they're looking at the toilet. They hear Sally out on their bed shooting up, and she's telling them, that's where someone died, that's where someone was shot, this is where this happened. They end up killing the guests. Iris and Liz, they're like, we need to have a come to Jesus meeting. We need to tell all the ghosts, stop killing people. It's putting a bad rep out for us. Wildrake and Sally, they're both like, I'm not gonna stop killing. That's the only thing I got going for me. James shows up and he's like, no, we all need to stop killing because they could come in, tear down the building, and just need to wait until 2026. That'll be 100 years that this hotel's been open, and it'll be a historic landmark. They can't tear it down. This is where you get a pretty memeable part. Iris comes in to see Sally and she's like, you haven't been the same since John left. Everybody leaves me and pissy, pissy, pissy. Well, then Iris gives Sally an iPhone. There's a whole nother world out there that can appreciate you and your artistic mind and your poem. Here you go. So that's where you get that meme of Sarah Paulson like sitting in the bed just like smiling at her phone. She's connected with an online audience. Millions of people care about her now. It's been over a year since Will's death. How fast time is moving here. So 2016, he sent Lachlan away to boarding school. Liz tells him, you can still create fashion even in death. She's like, use me as your new muse. Ends up becoming a proxy for Will. But then they start having fashion shows out of the hotel, and they're very exclusive. No phones, no photography, very limited guests, and it's like the talk of the town. Okay. Guys, I'm sorry, I did it again. I meant to print off a picture of somebody. She's a returning character. She was in Murder House. Billie Dean Howard. It is Sarah Paulson. She was the medium that we met in season 1, but Iris brings her there to the hotel. Liz is so depressed about losing Tristan. She says, I want to film my Lifetime show here. So she ended up getting that Lifetime show she talks about. They go into a room where Tristan died. Hey Tristan, I have Liz here. She wants to say hi. And then she says, he doesn't want to speak to you. Liz is like, he still blames me for him dying. As they're leaving the room, Billie Dean says, I'm getting another present, someone named Donovan. And he says, it smells like pancakes. Iris is like, what? Well, where he's at, it's a beautiful place, and it always smells like the pancakes he used to make. Liz finds out that she has prostate cancer. She's like, I'm the first woman in the world to have prostate cancer. And it's spread to the spine, so she gathers up all the spirits of the hotel and has them kill her. But before they do, the Countess actually shows up. She's like, you were my best creation I ever made. Slits her throat, and the rest of them all take turns stabbing Liz. Liz dies, but now Liz is a spirit. She's standing there looking over her own body. She lights up a cigarette, and then you just hear, those things will kill you. She turns around, and Tristan is there, and she's like, I thought you hated me. He says, no, I couldn't hate you. I didn't want to get in the way of you living. So since Billie Dean has visited the hotel the first time, she's done 3 Lifetime shows, and it's definitely brought eyes to the hotel over the next couple of years. This is a time jump to 2022. I was doing my research. It was a continuity error, future seasons actually. That's down the road, but we're in 2022. Imagine it down there. And she tries to get in touch with the 10 Commandments killer. It doesn't work. He doesn't ever want to show himself. John and Iris and Liz, they're talking and they're like, we're fucking tired of having her come here. Because people are booking out rooms on Devil's Night. It's on Devil's Night. Hey, we're having another Devil's Night, people. So John is like, I'll show myself and I'll try and get her out of here. She starts calling on the 10 Commandments killer. And he explains what had happened after his final kill of the Countess. So it flashes back. John found the family, which I don't even think they went into detail of how he found them. He's not able to find enough blood for them and he can't provide. Scarlett says, well, why don't we all just go back to the hotel and live there? Well, they go to the hotel and Scarlett is standing back and she's like, I can't stay here. They send Scarlett to a boarding school. I'm assuming it's the same boarding school that Lachlan went to. It shows John. He was going out and getting fresh blood for Holden and Alex, and he ends up getting caught up in a police shootout. They start shooting at him, and at the very last second, he gets onto the steps of the hotel, and he dies on the property. So he is a spirit of the hotel. He says, I can show you Devil's Night. The only way I'll show you is if you leave behind this camera crew. It's just you and me. Billie, she brings up the house just west of here. I feel the same energy here that I did at that house. Murder house. He introduces her to all of the guests, getting bombarded with all of the souls from James March that he's killed. They get her tied down on the chair. They're kind of all up in her grill and they say, you have the choice. You leave here and never mention any of us ever again. Keep our name out of your mouth, or we're gonna have you killed. And she's like, you guys are ghosts. You can't leave the hotel. Well, then Miss Ramona shows up and she's like, bitch, I can leave and I will track you down. Dahmer has his drill bit gonna pour acid in her head, so she's like, okay, fine, I won't. She ends up taking off running out of the hotel. John goes back to his room and he sees Scarlett. Scarlett has grown up, because remember, it's 2022. She only visits on Devil's Night for a couple of hours. As our final scene, a gentleman comes to the bar and sits down next to the Countess. He says, I'm just waiting for some friends. And she's like, you're not gonna meeting your friends tonight. And then she says, you've got a jawline for days. She is still going after him, still. And then it ends. Oh, now this is my time to complain. I'm hot. My back hurts. I'm tired of talking. I'm so confused. Okay, I'm done. Sorry. I had to get that out. Thanks for listening to this part. This one took a long time. We're gonna get into season 6 next, so I'll see you in 0.2 seconds, okay? Bye. Look, I don't have any colonial style clothing, okay? I'm doing another Lady Gaga cosplay. Yay. It'll make sense as we go on if you have no idea what I'm supposed to be. This is season 6 of American Horror Story, Roanoke. I'll give you my ranking. Is what I would have put the first time I saw this. I watched it when it first aired, hated it. Gotta be honest with you. Now, yeah. Oh yeah. 4 out of 5. If you were like me and you hated this season first go around, go back and binge it back to back, because that's how this season is meant to be. I almost said absorbed. That is so... The build up to this season was so strange. I do remember it when it was being promoted. Normally, Ryan Murphy or whoever makes the announcement will announce what the season is going to be well in advance so people can get hyped up. They wouldn't say what it was. Some people really... They figured it out quick. I didn't. This was the first season with no opening sequence. So this season is filmed like a paranormal documentary, and they'll talk to the camera in an interview and they'll describe their ghost story, and meanwhile they'll cut back and forth between a reenactment. That's what this is. I did see some comments, maybe one, how I didn't address the Roanoke reference in season 1 Murder House. Yeah, I know I didn't. We didn't have time. Yeah, we did have time, but I you know what it was? I forgot. In season 1, there is a part of an episode where Billie Dean is talking to Violet. They're trying to figure out how to cast out spirits, and she lets him know about the lost colony of Roanoke. Then they bring up the word Croatoan, which we'll talk about. Okay, get your vocab words out. Add this to the list, Croatoan. Let's just get started, okay? First half of the story is being told in 2015. There is a documentary that is being aired, My Roanoke Nightmare, and it follows the story. A couple of characters, if I can find them, where the did they go? Oh my god. Hang on, we're gonna have to pause. I didn't print off like a very main character. Hang on one second, I gotta go print her picture up. This one I cannot skip out on. I'm sorry. This is hot off the press. Our story starts the Millers, Shelby Miller. This is the picture I forgot to print off. I'm so sorry, Shelby. And Matt Miller. Look, my printer is running out of ink. They are telling their story about how they came to live in one of the most haunted places. They're living in LA at this time. Well, we're not here for very long because first of all, they find out that Shelby is pregnant. Well, one night they're out. There's a gang. They're trying to do a gang initiation called Knockout. And the goal is to find somebody, go up and knock him out. So they do that to Matt. He is the victim of gang violence. Anyway, they take him to the hospital and he's in a coma. Shelby's like, let me speak to him. He'll wake up if he hears my voice. He wakes up. Well, when he wakes up, Shelby notices she's got some blood running down her leg. He ends up having a miscarriage. They don't know if it was from the stress. Matt brings up the idea, why don't we go back where I'm from? North Kakalaki, North Carolina. We can get out of the LA lifestyle. They go find a piece of land, the house. Finally, after I didn't print off a picture of Murder House, Coven House, the hotel, I finally did it, huzzah! The bank is selling the house. They outbid some local hillbillies, some local hicks. That's a family called the Polks. They outbid them for $40,000 and Shelby immediately, she tells in her interview, it started to make me feel kind of uneasy. Oh, I totally didn't. As they're telling their story, the reenactments are happening. Miss Sarah Paulson playing Shelby, Cuba Gooding Jr., and he is playing Matt. So at night, they are fooling around and they start to hear something like a howling noise, a screeching, like a and it raises suspicion. Matt goes outside to look and see what the f is up. Sees trash is thrown out all over their front yard to see if he sees anybody, and then trash cans come hurling towards him. He thinks it's some kind of hate crime because they're an interracial couple. He's just chalking it up to just good old-fashioned racism. The good old boys that tried to buy the house. Matt, I think he's a pharmaceutical rep, but he has to leave town to go on work trips quite often. While she's at home, she starts seeing hail falling outside. She's like, what the f is up? What the f is up, Kyle? She puts out her hand. It's human teeth. What? Ew. When Matt gets home, they go outside. All the teeth are gone. Matt is leaving on another trip and he asks Shelby if she'll be okay. She's like, yeah, I guess so. But inside she's like, I'm so scared. I'm so scared right now. She goes out to the hot tub. That is very bold of you, sister. I would not. She takes a little dip in the hot tub, has a glass of wine, and while she's out there, something pushes her into the water. You get a little glimpse of somebody. The butcher. Now they don't know who this is at this point, but I feel like I need to go ahead and show you her picture. She sees some torches. The police come out there and are looking around. Matt shows up and meets them outside and they're like, yeah, she said that they came out here and pushed her under the water, but we're not finding any evidence. You'll find out that the police here are really lazy, haphazardly just going over the land. They're like, yeah, we don't see much of anything here. Matt goes inside. He doesn't really believe her. He believes that she saw something, but he doesn't believe that it's actually there. Shelby tells him that afraid to be alone in the house. Matt goes outside and he sees slaughtered pig's head. He doesn't tell Shelby. He goes and he buries it in the ground so Shelby doesn't see it. And then he ends up calling his sister, Lee, to come and stay with Shelby while he goes away on another business trip. Hang on, I'm just one person. Let me do this. Let me do it. Angela Bassett. This is Lee in the reenactment. Background in criminal psychology. She worked on the police force. She got injured on the job, ended up getting addicted to pain pills and alcohol. Long story long, she ended up losing her job and her husband wanted to file for divorce and take custody of her child. Now, Shelby and Lee, they're not the best of friends, really. Shelby is very much like, I teach yoga. I live a gluten-free lifestyle. No offense to anybody that can't eat gluten, but Lee sees her as being soft. They just don't click. Matt ends up setting up cameras around property. That way, in case something does happen, he'll be able to see it, and then he leaves to go on his business trip. Shelby is down in the kitchen and she's cooking up dinner, drinking a glass of wine, and she sets down her knife because she starts hearing a noise. She goes to look. She thinks it's Lee. She doesn't see anything, comes back in. The knife has been moved and the knife is sticking in a piece of meat over on the stove. Wow, that's not where she put it. Lee walks into the kitchen and scares her and she's like, what the f are you doing? Why are you trying to scare me? Lee does not believe in any of this. She's like, I'm just here because my brother asked me to. Lee says, hey, I know this is your house and all, but while I'm here, do you mind not drinking? Because I'm really struggling with my sobriety. Later on in the night, Lee is sleeping. She's woken up by some noises, and then she gets up and she sees a bottle of wine rolling across the floor into her room. And she's like, you f***ing bitch. She thinks it's Shelby. Why would you do this? This isn't funny. And Shelby's like, I didn't do it. Matt, watching through security cameras, he starts to see people coming with pitchforks, torches, and colonial style clothes, and he's like, oh god. He's trying to call Shelby and Lee. Well, the phone is on vibrate. They can't hear it because they're arguing so much. And then they start hearing noises, and Lee's like, shut your mouth. There's someone someone here. They go down to the cellar. Old TV and a VCR and a tape is playing of this man just saying stuff like, I knew it was real. I can't believe I found it. He's walking through the woods and you can hear the howling. And then it pans up and you see a pig man. I do not tell a lie. He comes back quite a lot, so get used to seeing that. The power gets cut off. They go run back upstairs. They see like strings and twigs in symbols. Like it almost looks like the Blair Witch Project. It's all in like a giant spider web hanging all around. It's very creepy. Matt, he's been watching and he says, you know what? I'm just gonna go back home because I'll get there quicker than the police will. He gets there and he thinks the video's fake. The hillbilly's trying to scare them into leaving. Shelby tells him like, I just want to leave. I don't want to be here anymore. Where are we gonna go? We bought this house for $40,000. We have no money. Shelby, in a panic, she goes out to the car and she starts taking off and looks up and sees Miss Butcher out on the road. She hits the Butcher. She gets up and she starts walking into the wood. Well, Shelby follows her into the wood. She starts getting lost in there, lost in the sauce. She said that the ground looked like it was moving. It looked like the ground was breathing and she was getting very disoriented. She stumbles upon a mob and then she sees a man with his brains exposed like he's been scalped and she faints. She wakes up and she sees the butcher are roasting this man on a spigot, put a pig's head on this man's body and nail a pig's tail to his rear end, thus making him the pig man. She's watching kind of a memory happen in real time. The butcher says that he's being punished because he tried to steal some rations, hoard some of the provisions that they have. And then Shelby also notices another woman who may look familiar. I don't know how to say this name. I tried to look it up. I'll write it out right here and you can try it. This is Lady Gaga, either Celtic or Old English. I'm not sure, but she's a witch. I think they said that she's a boar wrangler. I'm gonna refer to her as the witch. And the butcher, they lock eyes with Shelby and they're like, oh hell no, go get her. She's chased out, she finds the road, and when she finds the road, she's almost hit by a car by Lee. Shelby to the hospital. They test her for hallucinogenics, but she tested negative for everything because she tells police officers that she saw a human sacrifice happening. They're like, lady, and they say that they didn't find any evidence. And Shelby says, you know what, it must have just been those hillbillies. We're not leaving and this is our house and we're staying here. Lee goes into her custody arrangement with her husband Mason. They have a daughter, Flora. This is the reenactment. Flora, Lee says that she only gets to see Flora 3 days, like every 14 days or something like that. And she is talking to someone that is not there. When Lee finds her, she's like, who are you talking to? She says, I'm talking to Priscilla. This is her little Priscilla. Flora is told by Priscilla that she'll make her a bonnet if she can make it stop. And Lee says, what? And she says, all the blood. Right, okay, right after Priscilla says that, they hear a glass break. Lee goes up there and she sees a vase has been broken and she sees a bonnet laying on the floor next to it. One night, again, they hear the pig squealing. Matt and Shelby go out in the woods looking for whatever the source may be. And they find this kind of religious symbol sort of thing. I don't know what you would call it. And it's lit on fire. Well, Matt knocks it over. They call the police. They tell them that they think it's the Polks. So the police put out a bulletin to look out for one of the Polk members, Ishmael Polk. The best picture I could find of all of them together. This is Mama Polk. The police give the Millers protection details so somebody will be sitting outside of their house. This scene right here freaked me the f out when I watched it. Matt wakes up because he hears a phone ringing downstairs and he answers the phone and somebody's saying, please, they're hurting me. He pulls the cord, the phone is disconnected. So how is it ringing? How are people talking on the other end of it? Scary, right? Yes, get this. This is where it gets really scary. He turns around, he sees two nurses. Their names are Miranda and Bridget Jane, and he sees an old woman laying in a hospital bed, like in the middle of their living room, and they're asking her to take her medicine. I don't want to. It makes me feel awful. I feel even sicker when I take this medicine. Is that back talk? One of them gets a gun and shoots this old lady in the head. One of them spray paints an M on the wall behind the woman, and it says M. Obviously. She says M is for Margaret. Matt starts freaking out. He runs outside to get the police officers. This also wakes up Shelby and Lee from upstairs. Look at this. Go back in. Nothing's there. Police officer looks around and he's like, yeah, okay. What the hell? Sure. He wonders, because this is really his first paranormal encounter. He's not able to explain. He starts thinking, I wonder if I'm suffering some kind of brain damage from when I got attacked back in LA. Mason has come back by to pick up Flora. They can't find her right off the bat, but Lee says that she loves to play hide and seek. They find her in a little tiny closet holding out her doll. I was talking to Priscilla, but she left. You scared her away. And she says, I was offering her my doll so that she wouldn't kill you all. but because you interrupted us, she disappeared, and now the deal's off. She's gonna save me for last when it's time to kill. So then Mason is take Flora out to the car, and he's like, she is not coming back here. I'm going to talk to the attorney, because Mason also doesn't believe in the haunting, thinks that it's something that Lee put into her head. He's worried because she's not going to see her daughter anymore. Lee breaks her sobriety and she starts to drink again. Matt and Shelby find her, and then they look up and they see knives are thrown up in the ceiling, and they're like, what the are you doing in here? She says, I didn't do that. Matt takes Lee back to her room, and then Shelby's in the kitchen and she says, Matt, do you see her? Priscilla standing out in the yard. By the time they get out there, she's gone, but where she was standing is on top of a root cellar. They open it up, go down, they find more videos by someone, Elias Cunningham. He goes on to explain, owned the house in 1997, but he did not stay in the house for very long. He was kind of chased out because of some spirits that are there. He's a professor, and he left his job to go investigate this house, in particular disappearance of these two nurses, the Jane sisters. In 1989, welcome to 1989! Welcome to Roanoke! They started off nursing at another hospital, and there were some suspicious deaths. 2 patients died under their watch, but they left the hospital that they were at before any charges could be set on them, and bought this house and turned it into a nursing home. And they looked after patients that their families didn't want them anymore. It was easier to fall into their plan. They're murderers. But they looked for patients, certain criteria. So they chose people based on their name, first letter of their name, because they wanted to fulfill some kind of killing spree where they could spell out the word murder. Police got calls from family members and they couldn't get in touch with their loved one. The police go out, they investigate the house. They don't find anything. No personal items are left, except they find all the dead bodies from the sisters. And then they go into the living room and they see on the wall the word murder. They didn't finish. There was no R. They did not get the last one. Why? You're gonna have to wait and see. When they were cleaning up the house, they kept trying to wipe that word off the wall, paint over it, but every time they did, it would show through it. So then they put wallpaper over it. Matt, he's like, I know you're lying. Starts peeling the wallpaper off. Sure enough, it's there. Elias, he just says briefly that forces outside of the house caused the girls to leave. I'll get more into their story about what actually happened in his videotape. He's like, I'm going back in that house tonight. This is probably gonna be the last video I make. He might die. But he goes through the tunnel from the root cellar. There's a tunnel system that connects to the house. He gets inside. Well, he gets to a mirror and then he sees the butcher. But the video cuts off. You don't see what happened. As soon as the butcher pops up and the video cuts, Matt and Shelby, they hear the sound of something behind them. A cleaver, a bloody cleaver. So then they start talking to the bank. We don't want it anymore, take it back. And he's like, nope. When they bought it in auction, it was kind of up for grabs for anybody to go for it. The guy at the bank is like, sorry, sucks to suck. Well, then things get a little dicey. Lee makes her way back home, but she also has got Flora with her. She ended up going to Flora's school, bringing her back to the house. So technically she did kidnap Flora, and Shelby ends up calling Mason. Mason obviously is very much mad. Come by the house, don't call any attorney right now. They go out living room to get Flora to get her stuff ready. Flora's gone. She dipped. Front door is open and she is gone. So they go out looking for Flora, and they find this one, probably the tallest tree in all of the woods around the house, 100 feet up in the air. They see a little yellow jacket. That's Flora's jacket. So then they begin a search party for Flora. He's walking through the woods and she sees Flora's doll, but it's got its arms and its head pulled off. Little fetus pig head and pig limbs. This part is so disturbing, so if you don't want to watch this, I understand. But find this farmhouse. You later find out it's the Polks. And when they run in there, they see 2 feral looking boys and they're suckling from a pig. They turn around, they start yelling Flora, because that's what they're hearing them yell is Flora. It's gross. They go to the police station. They keep saying one word, Croatoan. They say that they're the Polks babies. Well, they look like they're a product of inbreeding, if I were to say so. Well, Mason shows up at the police station. He's ready to barge in there and start barking at these 2 feral boys. Stop Mason, and then they hear the boys just yelling Croatoan over and over and over again. After 12 hours, your chances of finding a lost child diminish quite a bit. Lee is already like, likely we are looking for a body. Mason is there and he starts laying it in on Lee. They start arguing and he ends up pushing Lee down, and then he storms out and leaves. Shelby and Matt, they go to sleep. Then they wake up, they get a call from the police saying, get out here, we need to show you something. They get Lee, they go out to the woods. They find a body strapped up on like a totem, completely burned. But then the police officer hands Lee a ring and she's like, it's Mason. Mason is dead. Rutro. Matt, he pulls the security camera footage and he sees that after they had their argument and Shelby and Matt went to bed, Lee went out after Mason, and Shelby starts to think, I think she did it. Well, then someone walks in. It's Cricket. Look at that haircut. Cricket is a medium. He was called from New Orleans. There could be a correlation to Coven that way, because he works with the FBI to help recover lost children. He found out that they were looking for Flora, so he showed up. And then they perform a seance in order to get in touch with Priscilla, but instead they get in touch with the Butcher. The Butcher tells Cricket that she is the protector of the Lost Colony. Did y'all ever learn about the Lost Colony? But there was a whole colony of people down in Roanoke that just suddenly disappeared. No trace at all. Priscilla has Flora outside of the grounds of the land. She's being protected by Priscilla and Cricket, and he wants to end the seance, so he gets up and shouts Croatoan. The Butcher disappears, but also the windows all around him shatter. I'll help you find Flora if you give me $25,000. So Matt's getting mad at him for it being a hoax. Well, then Lee gets really ticked and she gets her gun out, pointing it at Cricket, threatening to shoot him. And then Matt's like, okay, calm down, it's not worth it. As Cricket's leaving, he goes up to Lee and whispers in her ear. Emily says hello and wonders why you stopped looking for her. Well, then the real Lee is giving her interview and the producer is like, what happened to Emily? We're not talking about Emily. This has nothing to do with her. All participants of the show were subject to a background check. We saw that you have a daughter named Emily. Very briefly, she doesn't really go into detail, but she had a daughter before Flora that ended up going missing. But Lee doesn't have the best track record with her kids. It goes on to say that she ended up seeing Cricket. She ended up paying him the money. He starts to tell her the story of the Butcher. Because when Cricket left, he couldn't help himself and he went for a stroll through the woods and he ended up finding out a little bit more of the land's history. I'm assuming it's happening in like the 1700s. I don't know, it's colonial times, baby. Her real name is Thomasin White and she is married to John White, who is the governor of Roanoke at the time. They have a son named Ambrose, not to be confused with Dean Ambrose of WWE. Oh, I wish he would come back. John White, her husband, leaves to go to England to get more supplies and whatnot. He leaves the Butcher in charge. Oh my god, are you kidding me? Their food supplies, everything is the pits. Like, it's just not great. So Ambrose and another man named Clay, they talk to Thomasin and they say, we probably should just go somewhere inland where there's more food, there's more chances of us for hunting. She's like, shut the you shut the up, give me $200. I'm gonna throw rocks at your window. Like, I'm running this here outfit and I will say when we leave. They come up with a plan. They chain her up and then they put a spiked cage around her head and leave her out in the woods. They say, forget you, we're leaving. Even her own son, Ambrose, leaves her behind. Bye, I want food, bye, I'm hungry. She starts starving. She's out in the woods for days, starts hearing noises, like pig squealing noises. And well, then she runs into the witch. The witch gives her safety and food if Thomasin gives her soul to the witch. So then she gives her a raw boar's heart and she eats it as acceptance. While then Clay and Ambrose and a bunch of other men sitting around the table trying to devise where they're gonna go. Well, the Butcher walks in, they're gagged. She goes up to Clay, kills him, and then she goes up to Ambrose and Ambrose is like, then she says, I'm in charge, you fucking whores. We are going inward. We're finding new land. Follow me. Well, Cricket, in exchange for Flora's life, we'll burn down the house and we'll be out of your hair. Thinking that's gonna solve all the problems. But then the Butcher agrees. She's like, fine. Shelby finds out that and she's like, what the f? No, we didn't agree to that. Lee, he's like, yeah, Matt already said it's okay. Shelby's like, well, where is Matt? Oh my god, oh my god, oh, you're not ready. Matt is off in the woods having sex with the witch. The Polks are standing around watching Matt have sex. There's a pig sacrifice going on. It's a wild night for Matt. In his interview, he's saying, I don't remember it. I don't know what happened. I blacked out. Shelby and Lee head back to the house, but when they get there, the police are there to take Lee into custody because she is being arrested for the murder of Mason. Shelby, she goes upstairs to take a shower. When she pulls back the curtain, the pig man is there. The piggy man. Pig man keeps showing up all over the house. He's hit over the back of the head by one Elias. So when he hits the pig man over the head, he says the word Croatoan. The pig man goes away. Shelby says, that's the third time I've heard Croatoan. I don't know what it is. He says, it was left behind on a tree by the lost colony when they disappeared. That was the only thing that was ever found of them. It's a word of warning. And then he goes in to explain how he has owned the house for years. He couldn't pay some taxes on it or something like that. So then he had to sell it to the bank, who then sold it to the Millers. Then he starts pulling out all of his past files on all the owners, and all of the owners died or disappeared in a pretty mysterious way same time of year. It all happened in October during a cycle called the blood moon cycle. Spirits can do hauntings throughout the entire year, but that's the only time that they can kill, which happens to be starting that night. The one that started the house in 1792, oh me, I'm gonna run out of room. A man by the name Edward Philippe Mott. This him. Did you hear me? Last name, Mott. Refer back to Freak Show. Dandy, my favorite character. Then he goes on to talk about another family that owned the house. I f this up, so I'm gonna put this right here. And this was the best picture I could find of them. It's awful. This is the Chin family. They came over from Taiwan. I'm slacking. I wrote all these out in preparation. I'm not even using them. What was I saying? They started hearing things. They started having hauntings. Their daughter was pushed down the stairs at one point, drove him out of the house. The butcher was there, throws her cleaver at the dad, kills the dad right in front of the family, inadvertently kills the rest of the family. 1952. There are 3 hunters that are staying at the house. For whatever reason, they all 3 ended up killing each other. That happened during a blood moon cycle. Elias goes into telling what actually happened with the nurses. I think Miranda or whoever, one of them was washing her hair. Butcher comes up behind her and smashes her head into the sink. They get the other one and they all go out to the front yard. I think it's Bridget. They start pulling her arms, ripping her arms off. The butcher curses her, saying that her blood will soak the land. Miranda, I guess, they put her head down on the chopping block. The butcher chops her head off. So that's how they died. Elias is telling them blood moon starts tonight. We need to leave. We're not leaving. We gotta find Flora. They mentioned that Flora was talking to a ghost named Priscilla. And Elias is like, oh, I know who Priscilla is. I know where she hangs out. They go out to the woods. Shelby is starting surrounded by some of the past spirits and she starts shouting Croatoan at them. Well, Elias comes up and he's like, no, don't say that. Just shut up. They look over and they see Flora running around all the other past spirits. Elias yells out to Priscilla, she needs to come home with her family now. Well, as soon as he says that, arrows start coming out of the sky from the mob, the colony, the lost colony. The spirits, along with Flora, they leave. Shelby and Matt, they end up going back to the house and they see Cricket coming out and he's like, are y'all ready to finally listen to me? So he says, the butcher, she's not negotiating any further, runs into the witch. She shows him a memory centuries ago, the lost colony. The witch needs human sacrifices, right? That's her dark magic. The butcher is seen killing Priscilla. The rest of the colony is kind of like, her son denounces her, saying, you have turned your back on God and now you're following this devil woman. I don't want any part of it. They plan to leave yet again. These 2 little girlies right here, they start cooking up a plan. They plan a dinner. They get the colony all together. The butcher, she's like, you know what? You're right. I've seen the error of my ways. They're eating their food and cheering. Girly, she poisoned everyone. She ends up stabbing her son and killing her son Ambrose. Oh my god, she killed the colony. She killed it. But then the butcher, she also offers herself to the witch. The witch ends up killing the butcher. Cricket is like, my Uber's here. I need to go back to my hotel and I need to go get my sage, my spell book. The Uber driver slams on the brakes and he sees Flora running across the road. And Cricket is like, oh hell on wheels. Runs after Flora. Shelby is asleep. Matt says, I'll stand guard till Cricket gets back. He hears some whispering. He goes down to the cellar and sees, begins to tell him they came over from England centuries ago and she became an immortal witch and started practicing dark magic. Cricket actually chased Flora through the woods. Butcher ended up getting hold of Flora and she brings her to the house. She can sacrifice Flora in front of them. All the spirits show up. Priscilla hits the butcher over the head, lets her let go of Flora, and Cricket comes out. Fortunately, Cricket, you were meeting your end. Butcher ends up gutting Cricket in front of everybody. The last episode of the documentary, and it opens up with a historian who's into talking about the history of Mr. Edward Philippe Mott. He was a eccentric Philadelphian. Is it Philadelphian? She says that he has what we would now call severe social anxiety disorder. Just did not want to be around people. He comes down to North Carolina. He starts building this house. He leaves behind a wife and a son to be with his male lover named Guinness. One of his little quirks, he loves to buy up artwork. He buys it out the wazoo. He comes out of his carriage and he's talking to his, you find out, lover. How's the house coming along? What about the tunnels under the house to go all the way throughout the woods? Tragedies are happening as the house is being built because the land is cursed. Like a guy, he falls and breaks his leg. One night he wakes up and he hears some noises coming from his parlor. All of his artwork has been slashed. The busts are knocked over, broken. Freaks the fuck out. He calls all of his servants in there and he's like, which one of you did it? Nobody's fessing up. And then one of the girls says, I saw this big woman. Okay, body shame much, coming in from the woods, and I think it was her. And Edward's like, how dumb do you think I am? He ends up taking all of the servants and putting them in the root cellar to everybody except Guinness. Guinness is like, what the fuck are you doing? He tells Guinness, just fuck off. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. Edward goes back inside, goes to sleep, but then he's woken up by a mob. They strap him up. They end up impaling him, and he has died in front of his own house. And you did it at my birthday dinner. And Guinness is arrested and put in jail, but he never told anybody about servants that were locked in the root cellar. The house was passed through the Mott family until 1952. The last descendant, Dandy Mott, was killed. Matt and Shelby, they got Flora back. We can't wait for the police to come here because they're gonna attack at any second, so we need to just go ahead and go. So Shelby's holding on to Flora. Something snatches Flora right out of Shelby's arms. The Chin family, the way that they move, they kind of scuttle around. They can like climb up on the walls, but they're able to get her back. They end up going down to the cellar. And Edward shows up behind him and he's like, follow me, I have these tunnels. They make it out to the woods. Edward leaves them. Then the Millers, they are blindfolded and captured by the Polks. And they see the Polks have strapped down Elias. They've chopped off his leg. They're making jerky. He's still alive. And he tells Matt, you need to get your family out of here. These people are fucking insane. Mama Polk, she's eating some of the jerky and she's like, this is rancid. She starts to bash his head in and he dies. Mama Polk, she begins to explain the Polk family and the butcher, they've had a deal for 200 years. If they bring the human sacrifices, they're left alone, planning to take the Millers to the butcher to be the sacrifice. Throw the Millers onto the back of the truck. One of the boys has a shotgun pointed at him. Well, Matt is able to wrangle the gun away and he shoots the driver. The Millers start to get out, but Mama Polk shows up and she's like, screw you. They break Shelby's ankle, damn near takes her foot off. They throw him back in the truck and they take him back to the house. Lee is released by the police because they don't have enough evidence and she asks for a ride back to the house. Everybody's back home. The butcher's there. The butcher takes Flora. Ambrose, he's like, no more bloodshed. I can't do this anymore. He hits his mom up the back of the head. She lets go of Flora. He drags her into the fire and they both perish. Lee shows up with the police and she tells him, hey, go get some backup. The guy is like, nope, and he dips. Edward unties him and he's like, okay, now make your great escape. The pig man starts running over to Flora because he's gonna go finish the job. Well, then Lee comes out of nowhere with her whip and knocks him over with her car. Everybody get in the car, we're leaving. They make it out. You got all that so far? Their whole story actually took place in 2014, but the show aired in 2015. My Roanoke Nightmare came out, it was a hit. We're getting into 2016, people. The producer of My Roanoke Nightmare, the one that was interviewing all of the Millers, his name is Sidney James, and he's telling his camera crew, do not stop filming. Even if I tell you to stop filming, don't stop filming. He's going into the network to meet with the president. He's going to pitch the idea of a second season. Return to Roanoke, like a Big Brother style reality TV show. And what they want to do is bring the Millers and also the actors that were playing them and put them all back into the house. Lock all of them in there, take their phone, and have hidden cameras in the corner. He wants to film it during the cycle of the blood moon. Why not? He doesn't really believe that the house was haunted either. He actually bought the house from the Millers and used it to film the reenactment. And they talk about how when they were in the house for 8 weeks, nothing happened. So he's like, this is all bullshit. The president of the network tells Sidney the fans of the show were still pissed off because Mason's murder was never solved, and Lee she got off the hook. Then Sidney's like, I know, but that's the drama. We can maybe get a confession from her. And then his assistant Diana comes up to him and says, Shelby's not gonna do it. Well, then he goes and talks to her, sets up an interview to convince her. Her life has kind of gotten worse. She says she's getting death threats, can't go out anywhere, paparazzi are following her. Her and Matt are actually separated. Sidney brings it up. Could it have anything to do with the thing with Dominic Banks? Dominic Banks is the actor that played Matt. After My Roanoke Nightmare had premiered, her and Dominic had gone out on the town. She says it was a weekend fling. It doesn't mean anything. After that, Matt left her. Matt hasn't spoken to her since the whole fling started. She agrees to do the show in the hopes that Matt will agree to do it. They're going to be locked in the house, so he'll have to speak to her. But she also said, I'll only do it if Dominic is not involved. And Sidney's like, oh yeah, no, he's not coming. Sidney goes to the house to make sure everything's in tip-top shape. How they've rigged counters, cabinets in the kitchen, how they'll all explode, the sinks will start running out of nowhere, and he's just filled the house. Booby traps, I guess. There's another assistant on the project. She says, you all have got to see this. They find a circle of fetal pigs out on the lawn. It's just a little odd. And then they also mention that the Polks, they have been missing for a couple of weeks at this point. We have the real Mama Polk, Lot Polk. This is the one, I think he's the father of the 2 children that were taken. again. And then we have Ben Whitrock, you look disgusting. We have Jether Polk. Sydney has started to talk to Agnes Mary Winstead. She is the actress that played the Butcher. She really wanted to play this role. Like, something about it spoke to her. All the fanfare around it, people loved her as the Butcher. Then she was like nominated for a Saturn Award, which I guess a Saturn Award is kind of like an Emmy or something. Do you want to talk about what happened on Hollywood Boulevard? What happened was, there's fan footage, Agnes walking down Hollywood Boulevard dressed up as her character, the Butcher, swinging a cleaver around, arrested and charged with assault, the deadly weapon. Well, now you have a restraining order. You are not allowed on the set. That sends her into a spiral, if you've ever seen one. She starts kind of cursing them as her character, the Butcher. Sydney's legal team, they talked to him about bringing Lee back onto the show. Are we gonna get into any legal trouble? She could be a killer. And they said, no. The actress that played Lee, Monet, I have no idea how to pronounce her last name, has developed a drinking problem. And she blames it on method acting. But they said that what could be a liability is if Monet is encouraged by the show to start drinking and feeds into her addiction. They go back out to the house, and when they're out there, they see a body being covered up on a stretcher being taken away. Guys on the crew was setting up a security camera. In the background, someone that was helping build the sets was cutting wood with a saw, and the saw ended up turning around on him and he cut his throat. Kind of like when Edward was building the house and the guy fell off and broke his leg. Like, things are just happening. It's tragedy. Sydney's like, well, we're gonna keep going. Diane, she's like, I'm out. I don't want to do this. Drives off. And she starts filming herself on her phone, explaining everything that's going on. Well, then she stops the camera around and shows a Colony member standing in front of her car. And then she flips the phone around, Piggy Man, and then it cuts. You don't see what happens after that. It has a title card after her death, and it says that footage was found, but her body was never recovered. Guys, another Sarah Paulson character, Audrey Tindrell, and she puts on the worst British accent. Every time I think of this season, I just think of Sarah Paulson going, poor Shelby! Oh my god, poor Shelby! Audrey's in a confessional booth. She's talking about filming the show, and they show a little clip from a little blooper, a little behind the scene. The Millers are going through the tunnel with Edward Mott, and she trips over in the tunnel. It's kind of funny, haha. He makes fun of her for her British accent. And then you find out that that's Rory. I will never forgive them for getting Evan Peters to dye his hair flaming red like that. But they hit it off in the confessional. Rory comes in and he's like, we're married, surprise. They get to the house and they claim the biggest room, the master bedroom, for themselves. Rory gets a call for a screen test. They're filming on their phone, and when he's filming, he hears something and sees Agnes sitting outside the window. And as he gets closer, she smashes the window. Monet showed up, and so has Shelby. Sydney goes around and gives them all phones, but they can't call anybody. It's only to record video, because he wants to get their point of views while they're in the house too. Lee and Matt end up showing up. Lee and Shelby start arguing, and so the rest of the people, she just starts recording the fight happening in between. Then they break it up, and they kind of go to their respective corners. Actors, they're in the kitchen, and they're talking about how they don't really believe in any of the stories that the Millers have talked about. They were in the house for 8 weeks filming, nothing happened. Well, then Matt walks in and he's like, oh, it will. This is the first night of the blood moon. It's gonna start. And then after that scene, you see a title card. This is the found footage. Everyone in this series died a mysterious death, except for one. Just when you think things can't get any more dramatic, Dominic ends up showing up after Sydney promised Shelby that he was not involved. Find out later in his confessional that Dominic is only there to play the villain, because that Sydney promised him a spin-off show if he came in just to stir up some drama. He's acting. I'm acting.
I'm acting.
Well, when Dominic shows up, Matt goes right after him and they start fighting. And while they're fighting, Audrey's upstairs and she's trying to take a shower. When she gets out of the shower, she sees the Pigman. Audrey goes downstairs. Rory's upstairs looking for the Pigman. He goes to the closet, opens it up. Pigman's not in there. He turns around. The nurses come up behind him and kill him. Then it cuts to the production trailer. Sydney and his cameraman. Assistant leaves after she drops off the food. The cameraman says, oh my god, Rory just got killed. They hear a scream. They hear something outside. Agnes has killed the assistant. She goes and she kills Sydney. She kills the cameraman. Agnes is on the prowl. Agnes has fully taken on the role of the Butcher. Back at the house, everybody's going to look for Rory. They see a pool of blood. Audrey is like, oh my god, he's pulling a prank. He left. He got an offer to go audition for a role. That's where he's gone. He set this whole thing up. But then Matt, he figures it out. He knows that the nurses did the deed, and they finish spelling their word murder. Got the last letter that they needed from Rory. Shelby and Dominic, they start talking about affair thing. Shelby's like, was a mistake, and I really love Matt. Matt comes in and he's like, you can have her. And all of a sudden, Agnes shows up and she starts chopping at Shelby's shoulder. Dominic tries to stop Agnes, but she just kind of disappears. Then they're trying to help Shelby out, medical attention. Because as far as they think, Sydney is still alive and they think it's all a part of the show. So they're like, okay, Sydney, this is not funny anymore. You should probably send some help. Lee, Monet, and Audrey, they all go out to the woods to try and find the trailer. They leave through the tunnel system and they see Edward's ghost. And Lee's got her gun and she starts shooting at Edward and nothing happens to him because he's already dead. So they get outside and Audrey's like, oh my God, I saw you shoot him like 5 times. Find the production truck and they see that all of them have died. They have their camera phones. So Audrey starts making a little video message to Rory because she thinks that he's just gone off. Blood starts dripping down on her face. They look up, they see Rory's body strung up in the trees, gutted. The 3 women are attacked by the Polk family cattle prods, drugged back to the farm. They had Lee tied up in another room because she was actually involved with the Polk family for longer. Mama, she starts cutting some meat off of Lee's leg, like shaving layers of meat off to make some jerky. Jether, he's walking around filming everything and says that him and his brothers like to watch the videos later on, probably to jack off, but who knows. The meat off of Lee's leg, she takes it into Audrey and Monet and has them eat it. Well, then it cuts to Shelby's a little bit more mobile. They've got the bleeding under control. Dominic, he went down into the cellar and he saw Matt having sex yet again with the witch. So then Dominic is like, he's only bringing her down there to see Matt fooling around. And Shelby's like, are you f***ing kidding me? Hits the witch with a crowbar. And Matt reveals that he only came back because he wants her. Oh my God, gag of the century. Shelby loses her mind and beats the shit out of Matt and kills Matt. Then you see Agnes is lighting a fire around the house. This woman has snapped. A real butcher. She comes out with the mob and she surrounds Agnes and Agnes is like,
Oh my God!
oh my God, my savior. Well, the butcher, she could care less about her. She's like, get out of my way. Kills Agnes. Dominic and Shelby, they're still in the cellar. They're trying to leave through the tunnels, but they get chased back out by the Chen family. Yeah, they chase them back into the house and up into the bathroom. She can't take it. She feels so awful that she killed Matt. Shelby ends up taking a knife and cutting her own throat and killing herself. We're back at the Polks, right? Jether is there talking with Lee. Lee's like, can I have some water? They kind of start forming a little bond. Jether has not talked to many people outside of his family. He's cut off her ear. And she's like, why the hell did you cut my ear off? And he says, well, we all get a pickled ear at Christmas. He tells Lee that he's the youngest of the brothers. He wants to be like them and show Mama he can do exactly what they can do too. She says, can you take out the picture in my back pocket? Flora, I want to see her one last time. And then she says, pick up your camera. I need to tell Flora something. And she confesses to the murder of Mason. Okay. I think my good chunk of this video, I think the audio wasn't saved. So that's great. I love that for me. It cuts to Audrey and Monet. Lot and I don't know who the other one is. Is it Ishmael? I don't know. It's the other Polk boy. They have teeth strung up. Something about they need human teeth for something. I don't know. Monet finds a way to get out. She tries to undo Audrey's ties, but can't. Audrey's in there by herself. Well, then Mama comes in. She pulls one of Audrey's teeth out of her head. Lee is over in the room with Jether, and she starts to seduce him. She's like, if you untie me, I can touch you. So he undoes one of her hands, and sure enough, she stabs him in the neck, knocks out Mama with a hammer. She unties Audrey, and then Audrey takes the hammer and beats the hell out of Mama, and Mama dies. They don't know where Monet is gone. All right, well, we got to get back to the house. So they go back through the tunnels. Lee, unfortunately, has to see that her brother has died. Upstairs, and they see Shelby's in the bathroom, and she's got her throat cut. Oh my God, poor Shelby. And then Dominic is in the bathroom with Shelby. He's just been sitting in there. He explains everything that happened. They're like, you probably killed them. And they kick Dominic out. Well, then Dominic's out in the hallway, and the pig man comes up and kills Dominic. Lee says there's incriminating evidence at the Polk household. You know, the police, they don't care, so they're just gonna chalk it up to them being the murderers. Lee convinces Audrey that they need to leave and go back to the Polk house. Really, she just wants to go get the tape. Audrey doesn't know about the tape yet of the confession, and as soon as they open the front door, they see the pig man, although it's not the pig man. Audrey hits him with the crowbar, and it's revealed a man named Dylan who played Ambrose in the reenactment. It was all set up for him to come by the house and scare everybody dressed as the pig man, and then he helps them devise a plan to get out of there, to get back to the Polk farm, because they say Monet's probably back there. Then we get a clip of some bloggers. They're out in the woods. Taissa Farmiga is back. Only for a little bit though. Sophie, Milo, and Todd. And they're going around the woods to try and find the Roanoke house during the blood moon cycle. They see a woman. She's bloody and she's crying. She looks very confused. Well, it turns out it's Diana, the assistant that drove away. So they start chasing her down through the woods and they find her car turned over. They look inside and they see her dead body. They're interrogated by the police. And the police are like, we didn't find any evidence of a body out there. They think that the kids, they're all just making it up for their YouTube channel. Dylan, Lee, and Audrey, they go back and Dylan is trying to hotwire one of the trucks. But Audrey finds Monet and she finds the tapes first. Ishmael Polk comes in and he starts threatening to kill everybody and Audrey starts recording him. Then she shoots him because she got the confession of him wanting to kill them and she shot him out of defense. Dylan starts the truck, but then Lot shows up and hurts Dylan. And then they start seeing some of the colonists approaching. They see some of the torches coming through the woods. So Lee is gone missing from Audrey and Monet. Audrey and Monet get out, leave Dylan behind. How rude of them. And they go back to the house. And Monet is like, he might be dead out there. Audrey says, no, she wouldn't die without having this tape. They watch it, they see her confession. It's not looking well for Lee. Her reputation, there will be no explanation, only reputation. In the wood, Lee is running around and she sees the witch, kills like a wild boar. She carves out the heart and gives it to Lee, much like she did with the butcher. And Lee takes the heart and becomes a member of the Roanoke colony. Okay, so the bloggers, they're back out in the woods. They want to return to the site so they can prove to the police that everything is real. Todd, he sees Lee. He goes up to her and he's like, oh my God, you're Lee. Do you need help? Well, then she turns around and kills him. And then she starts chasing the other two bloggers, ends up losing them in the woods, but they find a production truck. And that's where they find out that they were filming like a second season. They see that Lee has found her way back to the house. So then they're like, oh, hell that she's gonna go kill them all. They call the police, but the police, they think they're crying wolf again. Audrey and Monet, they hear a noise. They go out and see it's Lee, and they start talking about, we saw your confession tape. Well, Lee, she snaps, pushes Monet over the side of the railing. She gets impaled by something on the ground, and she dies. Monet is now dead. So then Audrey manages to get away from Lee, and then she ends up getting stabbed and falling into the root cellar. Well, then the bloggers show up. They see the butcher disemboweling the guts from Dylan. So when they see that, they start filming. Lee spots them and Lee comes up behind him. It cuts to a title card, a trigger warning, and it says video footage that we found from these bloggers. This is what happened. It's brutal. They die. The mob gets the bloggers. They impale them and then light them on fire. But they're filming it through their GoPro, so you see their perspective. And then the next morning, it cuts to body cam footage from a police officer. Sophie and Milo burnt to a crisp. They find Lee and they're like, ma'am, are you okay? She comes to out of this trance that she was in. So they get her to the police car. Audrey comes out of the root cellar. Lee sees her and Lee starts walking to her. Well, Audrey didn't know that she was in some kind of a trance. So Audrey is like, she's the killer. Goes to grab the police's gun. The other police shoot Audrey dead. Lee is the only survivor of this Roanoke nightmare, of this return to Roanoke, excuse me. This last episode is kind of a recap. So it opens up, this is before the return to Roanoke was greenlit. My Roanoke Nightmare just aired, and they're at like a Comic-Con.
Our nightmare was our dream.
And it's just showing the fanfare around everybody and everything. One of the girls, she is she's a big fan of Lee. Can I give you this drawing I drew of you and your daughter Flora? I love you guys so much. Present day after Return to Roanoke, the girl, she's making a YouTube video and she's saying how she doesn't agree with the second season. She's like, this is gonna tarnish the whole first installment of this. After you watch that YouTube video, Lot has made a YouTube video and he says he's going to get revenge on Lee for taking his babies, having the police take his babies, and also killing his whole family. There's another show, they're following Lee's life. It's a show called Cracked. A district attorney is talking about the whole legal drama after the show, after the confession came out from Lee killing Mason. Her attorney counteracts the argument saying she was under distress, psychological and horror trauma at the hands of the Polks. Anyway, long story short, Lee is not found guilty of any of the murders. Are you ready for this, bestie? Oh my God, our final crossover. Lana Winters is coming out of retirement. Lana Banana from Asylum. She's a journalist. She became a TV personality. Well, she's coming out of retirement to do one more final interview with Lee. Lee is kind of skeptical about doing the interview, but she only agrees to it because since the trial, Mason's parents have taken custody of Flora and they don't want her to have any contact with her at all. Lee's kind of last chance at Flora to be able to hear her. Lana asks, why did you agree to sit down with an interview with me? And she says, well, because you know tragedy firsthand. And then she brings up the bloody face murder. See, second season, first video, second season. Lana brings up, do you know anything about Flora's whereabouts? Well, as of this morning, Flora has gone missing again. Lee doesn't have any idea what's going on. She's going into a bit of a panic. Well, then they start hearing gunshots out in the hallway. And then Lot Polk comes in to the interview. He starts threatening Lana and Lee. He knocks out Lana with his gun. And then the police come in and shoot Lot and kill him. All the Polks have died. One last TV show that's coming back to the house. It's a show called Spirit Chasers. They're very ghost adventures. There are things in this world that we will never understand. The house has been boarded up, completely fenced off. Storm chasers, spirit chasers. We're hopping the fence. We're going to see this house. And they bring a special guest. Ashley Gilbert played Cricket. They're in there investigating. Well, as you can expect, things are going cray. Lee shows up because been 2 weeks since she did her interview with Lana Winters. Flora is still missing, and she knows the one place that she most likely is going to go. The house. During the blood moon cycle. Did I mention that they're there for the blood moon? Lee's told them countless times, like, y'all need to just fucking leave. The investigators, they're attacked by the Pigman. Ashley Gilbert, the actor, he's killed by the Piggy Man. They finally leave, and the police are out there waiting. They turn around, and they see arrows coming out of the sky. They all die. So back in the house, he ends up finding Flora in there. They stay in there for a standoff with the police for about 14 hours. Flora says that she would like to go ahead and sacrifice herself and protect Priscilla from the butcher. They go back and forth because Lee's like, that is so stupid. Why the would you do that? Well, what if I take your place and I look after Priscilla? They end up burning down the house. Burning down the house! Sorry, I love that cover from Paramore. Flora runs out. Police put her in the back of the car. While she's driving away, she sees her mother holding onto Priscilla's hand, and they're watching the house burn. Then it shows the colonists. They're looking down at the scene, looking at all the police. It pans up to the blood moon, and then they raise their torches and their cleavers and knives and whatever, and they're going to clean house. That is it. That's the end. We did it. Thanks everybody for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. Tried to keep it under 3 hours. We're gonna get this whole thing cleaned up. I will be having to purchase a whole nother board. Oh shit. I made this all nice and neat and everything. Okay, I'm for real done now. Goodbye. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, love ya.